Chapter 5193. The entire extra-legal spirit demon army was mobilized and started a carpet search of this area. This was fatal to the spiritual casters. They started to hide, but the area they could survive in was shrinking. On a battlefield, the extra-legal spirit demons and the spiritual casters finally met. Roar. There was an angry roar. A giant ape appeared, with a strong aura surging around it. The giant ape held a black staff and smashed it at an extra-legal spirit demon in front of it. With a loud bang, the extra-legal spirit demon flew backward. In the next moment, two rays of light flew out of the giant ape's eyes and pierced the extra-legal spirit demon's body like sharp blades. A Nine Forces realm cultivator was killed on the spot. Amitabha. Behind the monk, a golden Buddha shadow appeared. It had a benevolent face and looked like a real Buddha. The monk held two swords. Surrounded by Buddhist power, the two swords crossed the body of an extra-legal spirit demon. Puff. The extra-legal spirit demon's body was split into several pieces. The monk's swords were not stained with blood. He immediately flew back. In the two battles, the spiritual casters had won. At this moment, a third person walked out from the extra-legal spirit demon's side. On the spiritual caster's side, Zhong Haotian's figure disappeared. After a while, the head of the extra-legal spirit demon flew up, causing waves of exclamations. Facing the encirclement of the extra-legal spirit demons, everyone gathered together. After so many years, everyone had advanced to the Nine Forces realm and reached the peak of this world. They, who could only run away in the face of the extra-legal spirit demons, finally had the strength to fight. Su Mengyaro stood there. Her position was the closest to the front. The others stood behind her on both sides. Su Mengyaro was the leader of this battle. Miao Miao, Eight-Headed, Kai Yang, Bone Eagle, Cheong Chi, and other existences were also here. Ji Hong, the Killer Clan, Xiao Wei, and the other Shadow Destroyers had also reached the Nine Forces realm. It could be said that this team was the main force against the extra-legal spirit demons. They had caused the extra-legal spirit demons to suffer heavy losses. Zhong Haotian walked back, and Eight-Headed walked out. Back then, he was an extraordinary existence. When they arrived here, the demon race appeared in their human forms. Their original bodies had become something similar to their innate supernatural powers. The original body of the 8 heads appeared behind him. The 8 heads on the huge body looked exceptionally ferocious. There was no suspense in this battle. Cheers erupted from the spirit caster's side. After so many years, they finally had the strength to fight. As for the extra-legal spirit devil, none of the Nine Forces realm cultivators who came out could return alive. This affected their morale. In front of the extra-legal spirit demon stood an old man. His expression did not change much in the face of the death of his subordinate. If there was anything, it was just a bit of an accident. There was no such thing as shock. The battle was still going on. The old man watched quietly. He watched as the spirit casters displayed their might and watched as the extra-legal spirit demons were killed one after another. Interesting. No wonder they can influence the upper realm. The old man sighed with emotion. These people were able to grow to such an extent in an extremely short period of time. It was truly amazing. He waved his hand and said, "Continue." He did not care about the death of the spirit demon. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The river of stars flowed, and countless laws flashed. In this world, the most mysterious thing was the Milky Way. It was the origin of this world, and it was also the final protection of this world. On this day, someone emerged from the Milky Way. It was Zi Chen, who had been asleep for many years. He had finally awakened. Being in the Milky Way, he no longer felt uncomfortable. His hands slid, and the Milky Way flowed on his fingertips. So, this is the essence of the Milky Way. Zi Chen's figure rose into the air and left the Milky Way. In the next moment, countless laws gathered towards him and manifested into a long robe of laws. The long robe of laws was colorful and dazzling. Zi Chen felt that it was too dazzling, so he withdrew all the laws contained in it. In the end, it turned into a white robe that was spotless. The white-robed Zi Chen went ashore and moved forward. Asterisk 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 poof. The bone eagle tore the enemy apart and turned around to walk back. There were already more than a dozen corpses around, all of which belonged to the extra-legal spirit demons. Until now, they had not won a single battle. The spirit caster's morale was extremely high. On the other hand, the extra-legal spirit demon's side fell into a slump. At this moment, the old man walked out. He looked at Su Mengyaro in front of him and said, "You're the leader? Let them come together." Su Mengyaro raised her eyebrows slightly. The old man gave her an unfathomable feeling. "You!" The devil ape glared at the old man. In the next moment, he walked out. His pace gradually quickened, and the true body of the devil ape appeared behind him, smashing forward with a rod. The old man waved his hand and directly tore through space. He grabbed a mass of turbulence and threw it at the devil ape. Bang! The devil ape was hit by the turbulence and was instantly sent flying. Everyone's expression changed. They did not expect the old man to be so strong. Grand Ancestor. Behind him, the extra-legal spirit demons cheered. The old man frowned and said in surprise, "It didn't destroy you." As he spoke, the old man raised his hand and grabbed the turbulence from the void again and threw it forward. Everyone was hit by the turbulence one after another, and their bodies were constantly sent flying. Some were injured, and some were coughing up blood. The originally tyrannical crowd was no match for an old man. However, the old man was even more surprised. He originally thought that the turbulence could kill everyone, but he did not expect that it could only kill the extra-legal spirit demons. It was ineffective against the spirit casters. He shook his head and said, "It seems that this skill was practiced in vain." The old man looked at the crowd in front of him again and said, "In that case, I won't play with you anymore. Let's end this quickly." A long saber appeared in the old man's hand. The moment the long saber appeared, the wind and clouds changed, as if a force that did not belong to this world had descended. Everyone, including Su Mengyaro, felt their hearts tighten. "Sister." Lin Shui looked at Su Mengyaro. "What power is this?" Su Mengyaro closed her eyes, as if she was deducing something. In the next moment, she opened her eyes and said, "Full defense." With that, she stepped back. The devil ape, the monk, Zhong Haotian, and the others immediately walked forward. They lined up in a row, facing the old man with the saber. The old man slashed down, and the saber arc extended horizontally. He was also conceited. He wanted to cut everyone in half with this slash. The devil ape and others shouted and activated all their strength, blocking in front of them with their weapons. The saber arc swept past, and the weapons in everyone's hands were instantly cut in half. Everyone coughed up blood and flew backward. All of them were seriously injured. Such combat strength was shocking. Su Mengyaro said again, "Continue." Her expression was calm, without the slightest ripple. So Ji Hong and the others walked forward. They were 100% obedient to this leader. In some ways, she was even more qualified than Zi Chen was back then. Kai Yang, B.A. Shou, and the other existences followed. Even if they knew that they were no match for the old man, even if they knew that this was a situation of certain death, they still walked forward. The old man had already slashed down for the second time. Ji Hong and the others also flew backward without any resistance. One by one, they coughed up blood and were injured, and their weapons were all broken. The situation was reversed, and the extra-legal spirit demons began to exclaim, their morale soaring. From the looks of it, with just a few slashes, the spirit spellcasters would all die. Lin Shui said worriedly, "Sister, we can only block 3 attacks at most, what should we do next?" Su Mengyaro, who had always been expressionless, suddenly smiled. This kind of power that does not belong to this world naturally needs someone who transcends this world to deal with it. At this moment, the old man laughed and slashed for the 3rd time. Everyone was anxious, because no one was blocking in front. Then wouldn't this slash cut Su Mengyaro and Lin Shui in half? At this moment, a light shadow suddenly appeared. As if teleporting, he stood in front of Su Mengyaro. Looking at the incoming saber arc, he stretched out 2 fingers. Chapter 5194. The blade arc attack was caught by someone and stopped moving forward. The terrifying energy contained in it was quickly being destroyed. The enthusiastic cheers from the extra-legal spiritual demons disappeared. Everyone looked in front of them, at the person who caught the arc of the blade. They widened their eyes in shock. How could he be so strong? In some people's minds, distant memories suddenly appeared. They were memories from hundreds of years ago, or perhaps even thousands of years ago. A shadow destroyer killed his way into shattering Law City by himself, killed dozens of Nine Forces realm cultivators, and then jumped into the Milky Way to commit suicide. It's him. That person from back then. Didn't he jump into the Milky Way and die? Exclamations came from the extra-legal spiritual demons. It's the Lord. Lord Zichen. The Lord is back. Excited exclamations came from the spiritual spellcaster's side. Everyone was excited. Lin Shui and the others finally understood why Su Mengyaro still asked them to defend instead of running away in such a dangerous situation. It turned out that Zichen was back. They could not sense it, only Su Mengyaro could. It's you. The old man looked at Zichen with a solemn expression. It's me. The blade arc between Zichen's fingers completely disappeared. The old man's eyes flashed. He reached out his left hand, grabbed a mass of turbulence from the void, and threw it at Zichen. Zichen stood there, motionless. The turbulence approached and was about to hit Zichen's face. Suddenly, the turbulence turned on its own and circled around Zichen, then flew toward the old man. At the same time, the void shattered silently. Mass after mass of turbulence appeared and merged into it. The small mass of turbulence turned into a huge mass of light when it was about to reach the old man. The old man shouted and slashed down with his blade. Kai. The turbulence was split into two. It did not disappear, but flew to both sides. Crack, crack. The severed turbulence exploded, turning into small clusters of turbulence that fell on the bodies of the other extra-legal spirit devils. In an instant, there were miserable howls. One by one, the extra-legal spiritual demons died in the turbulence. On the spirit caster's side, everyone's faces were filled with shock. The turbulence had previously landed on their side. Although they were injured, there was no danger of death. Why was this happening now? Hearing the screams behind him, the old man's expression changed. Zichen looked at him. You can leave now. The old man gripped his saber tightly and said indifferently, We have countless experts here, hundreds of times more than you. What do you have? Zichen said indifferently, I'm enough. Then, Zichen glanced at the sky. Boom. The sky shattered. Countless turbulent flows fell from above like the nine heavens, drowning the extra-legal spiritual devils behind. Screams of agony began to rise and fall. The extra-legal spiritual devils struggled, trying to escape from the turbulence, but it was impossible. Those who were outside the turbulence quickly retreated, their eyes filled with infinite fear. It was too terrifying. With just a glance, the sky shattered, and turbulence descended. No wonder he said that it was enough to have him in this world. This was not conceit, but confidence. With such a method, no matter how many extra-legal spiritual devils there were, they would still die. The death of countless extra-legal spiritual devils behind him caused the old man to fall into a state of rage. He held a long saber in his hand and charged towards Zichen. At this moment, he still dared to attack Zichen because he was not afraid of the turbulence. Therefore, even if Zichen used the turbulence to deal with him, he would only be asking for humiliation. Zichen looked at the old man who was rushing over and slowly extended his palm. The old man laughed mockingly. You still want to use the turbulence? He slashed down with his saber. The moment the blade touched Zichen's finger, it hovered there. Countless rules appeared from all directions, trapping both Dao Feng and the old man. There was no turbulence, only rules. All the rules of this world. At this moment, Zichen was the ruler of the world. As long as the living beings of this world followed the rules, they would look up to Zichen. The old man wanted to struggle, but it was useless. Only the long saber made a whining sound as if it was about to break through the rules. The long saber did not belong to this world, nor did it abide by the rules of this world. Zichen reached out his hand, wanting to grab the long saber. Buzz! Suddenly, the long saber trembled and broke through the suppression of the rules. Then, it brought the old man far away. Zichen frowned slightly, but he still gave up the idea of chasing after the other party. He looked at the terrified extra-legal spiritual devils in the distance and said, "This time, consider it a lesson for your clan." As soon as his words fell, the void shattered. The turbulence of the galaxy fell from above like a torrent, drowning all the extra-legal spiritual devils. Screams filled the air. At this point, other than an old man, none of the extra-legal spiritual devils who came here were alive. Such a loss exceeded that of the previous battles, including the world-ending battle many years ago. Because this was a power that transcended this world. As long as this power existed, no extra-legal spiritual devil could invade. The spirit casters behind were all incomparably shocked. Just as Zichen had said, he was more than enough. One person could wipe out a clan. The world in front of them returned to normal. All the extra-legal spiritual devils were dead. Countless cheers came from behind. This time, it was a real victory. And as long as Zichen was here, this world would never be threatened again. Zichen turned around and looked at the excited crowd behind him. He looked at Su Mengyaro and smiled. Su Mengyaro was also smiling. But the two of them knew very well how much hardship, helplessness, despair, and helplessness were in this smile. If it were not for luck, the result would be unimaginable. Zichen said, "Next, let's reorganize the people and return to Dharma-shattering city." Endless cheers. At night, a bonfire rose. Zichen, Ji Hong, Su Mengyaro, and the woman of the Slayer clan gathered together. Ji Hong asked, "What are you going to do next?" Zichen said, "The extra-legal spiritual devils may not be satisfied. After their counterattack, we'll talk about other things." The leader of the Slayer clan asked, "Can you connect the channel?" Zichen said, "I'm not sure about the immortal spell world yet, but it's not a problem to connect the channel to the all-spirit world." The crisis of the extra-legal spiritual devils had been resolved. Next, Zichen would use the Black Tower as the foundation to connect the two worlds. By then, more people would come to this world and use the rules here to achieve higher realms and battle strength. As for whether the immortal spell world could be reopened in the future, it would have to wait until there were enough strong masters in this world. After so many years, the group returned to Dharma-shattering city. There were no more extra-legal spiritual devils here, but there were still some spellbreakers, but there were very few of them. When Zichen and the others returned, these spellbreakers were captured. It was Kant and the others. Zichen was very surprised. He thought these people had died in the battle. It was naturally better that they were not dead. Next, Zichen would not allow others to attack Kant and the others. Chapter 5195. These spellbreakers were the survivors of the Great War. After so many years, many of their realms had increased, but their realms did not seem to have increased by much. For example, Kant was only at the 7th strength realm. However, it was because of this realm that they were able to survive and not be chased to the battlefield by those extra-legal spirit demons. This was also Kant's order. Everyone deliberately suppressed their realms. It was all for today. Seeing Zichen again, everyone was extremely excited. Even Phoebe, Sanglali, and the others who hated Zichen to death back then were crying tears of joy. Compared to those inhumane extra-legal spirit demons, they were more willing to deal with the reasonable Zichen. Spellbreaker's city was empty. All kinds of resources had been used up long ago. The entire city had many things to do. Everyone began to busy themselves with their own duties. Zichen went into the depths alone and walked into the light screen. The extra-legal spirit demons had all run away, but the passage did not disappear. It was still there. Zichen looked at the passage in front of him and could not help but smile. He understood what the extra-legal spirit demons meant. It was just that he obviously did not want to go back. The reason the old man was able to escape was because of the long saber he had on him. The long saber was not suppressed by the rules of this world. Zichen was not sure how many such treasures there were on the other side of the passage. It was better to be vigilant. He sat cross-legged and waited. Perhaps the extra-legal spirit demons were also waiting at the other end of the passage. Zichen returned. Su Mengyaro was still the leader here. She arranged everyone in an orderly manner. Those mineral veins had to be explored again and then mined again. All kinds of resources also had to be gathered again. This was a complicated and long process. Because this time, the spellbreakers were in charge of it themselves. During this period, there would naturally be some conflicts. After all, the crisis was resolved, and the people's hearts would fluctuate. Fortunately, the problems were not big. Zichen had been guarding by the side of the passage. He did not take the initiative to enter, nor did he forcefully seal it. Both sides seemed to be in a tug-of-war, competing to see who was more patient. Finally, the extra-legal spirit demons could not take it anymore. A flash of saber light came from the other end of the passageway, carrying boundless killing intent. Zichen's body disappeared into thin air. The blade swept past the place where he was sitting cross-legged, and a low peak was split into two. The old man walked out of the passage. He was clad in armor and held a long saber in his hand. He looked at Zichen indifferently. "I overestimated you. I thought you would go over." Boom. Zichen glanced at the old man. The place where the old man was standing immediately collapsed. Endless turbulence appeared and submerged the old man's body. Without any superfluous words, they fought as soon as they met. The old man roared, "These turbulent flows can't hurt me at all." His armor glowed as he walked out of the turbulence. The turbulent flow of stars didn't affect him at all. Zichen waved his hand again. This time, he mobilized the Star River Law. Countless rule force descended from the sky and landed on the old man. It was as if a giant hand had gripped him tightly. "Ah!" the old man roared into the sky. An aura that did not belong to this world was released from his armor. He wanted to forcefully break free from the suppression of the rule force. Zichen walked forward slowly. With every step he took, the rule force of heaven and earth would strengthen. The rule force fell on his body like rain, affecting the old man's chi circulation. "Go to hell!" the old man roared again. The long saber in his hand slashed horizontally, and a saber blade like a waterfall went straight for Zichen. Zichen clenched his fist. Infinite light bloomed from his fist, enveloping the rule force of this world. Boom! With one punch, the saber blade directly collapsed. Seeing this, the old man's expression changed drastically. There was a hint of disbelief in his eyes. At this moment, Zichen's fist arrived and smashed directly between the old man's eyebrows. The old man staggered and retreated dozens of feet. During this time, the rule force kept falling and imprisoning him. Damn it! Blood flowed from the corner of the old man's mouth. Looking at Zichen, who continued to move forward, he fully activated his armor. The armor shone and completely enveloped his body. Zichen's second punch arrived. Like a thunderbolt, it landed on the old man's body and exploded with a rumbling sound. Then, one punch after another. With every punch, heaven and earth would erupt with a violent roar. Rumbling sounds could be heard. The old man had no strength to fight back at all. If not for the protection, the old man would have died hundreds of times. But now, the light of the armor was rapidly dimming under the suppression of the rule force and Zichen's attacks. The old man panicked a little and slashed down with his saber again. Kai! Zichen's body was split into two. However, he didn't feel happy at all. Instead, he quickly turned around and slashed down again. It was just an afterimage. Your reaction is very fast, but your speed is too slow. Zichen's fist hit the old man's glabella. Boom! The old man was sent flying backward. He was no match for him at all. Zichen said, "It's about time." As soon as he finished speaking, a sword appeared in his hand. As energy was injected into it, the long sword erupted with a dazzling light. Zichen slashed down with his sword. It was as if countless restrictions had appeared and pressed forward. The light on the old man's armor was instantly suppressed. Then, the sword light flashed. A clear sword mark appeared on the heavenly fiend supreme treasure. This time, the old man's eyes were filled with fear. He formed a seal with his hands and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. His fingers moved in the blood essence, forming a pattern. Buzz. Blood light exploded. Before the second sword arrived, the old man's figure disappeared. The passage twisted and the other party escaped. Zichen turned around and looked at the passage in front of him. He threw the long sword in his hand out. The long sword turned into a flying sword and entered the passage, following the old man to another world. A tyrannical aura erupted in an instant, and countless restrictions spread out. A murderous intent filled the air. The killing formation was wreaking havoc. In an instant, screams rang out continuously. The countless extra-legal spirits and demons guarding the surroundings were instantly dismembered by these restrictions and formations. After flying in a circle in front, the flying sword hit the old man's chest and then turned back. The old man spat out a mouthful of blood and watched as the flying sword escaped. He was powerless to stop it. With a flash of light, the long sword flew back. It was the Dao sword. The true origin of this sword came from the immortal arts world. Many years ago, it was the foundation of a world's most valuable treasure. Although the disappearance of that world affected the grade of the Dao sword, it was still an extraordinary item. Even now, it was not inferior to the heavenly demon treasure. Zichen stood there and looked at the passage in front of him silently. After a while, a powerful energy came from the passage. Then, the passage began to twist and finally disappeared. Zichen did not need to do anything. The extra-legal spirits and demons had cut off the passage on their own. Because even the Grand Ancestor could not defeat the strongest of the extra-legal spirits, let alone the others. At this point, the threat of the extra-legal spirits and demons had been eliminated. Zichen walked out from the depths and went to find Ji Hong to tell them about this. Ji Hong said emotionally, "You are now Ji Shan." Before he entered the immortal arts world. The most powerful person in the world. Fully deserving. Zichen did not care much about this. After all, it was just a title. Therefore, Su Mengyaro arranged for people to enter the depths. There were some resources inside. Among them, the Shadow Destroyers were the first batch. Because this was where they used to live. After settling some trivial matters, Zichen went into the Black Tower. When he returned, Su Mengyaro gave the tower to him. Chapter 5196. Zichen asked the woman for advice on how to connect the two worlds. Although he had the Black Tower, he couldn't personally bring people over every time. Moreover, entering and exiting this place, even if he deliberately whispered, would cause the woman to feel impatient. Zichen was right to ask, and the woman quickly came up with a plan. She didn't fall out with him, nor did she show any impatience. That was to use the Black Tower as the foundation to forcefully connect the two worlds. However, the entrance and exit this time wasn't on the 7th floor, but on the 1st floor. That was the initial step, and the next step was to connect the two worlds with coordinates. This would take a long time, and it was also a huge project. However, Zichen had plenty of time. Zichen returned to the Tianwu continent. After so many years, he had returned. After descending, he sensed the aura of many Heaven's Choice Realm cultivators. Back then, Zichen had spread the news that as long as one reached the Heaven's Choice Realm, they could come to the Tianwu continent. He would bring everyone to the Lawbreaker realm. Unfortunately, something had happened, and he hadn't returned for many years. After returning, Zichen immediately sent a message to Jolina. Jolina was extremely excited when she heard Zichen's voice. After so many years, with the supply of countless resources, she had successfully reached the Heaven's Choice realm. Not long after, everyone in the world knew of Zichen's return. The Tianwu world was operating normally. After Zichen asked briefly, he told Jolina that they could gather the Heaven's Choice realm cultivators and leave. The passage between the two worlds had been successfully opened. In the Tianwu world, the Heaven's Choice realm cultivators who had waited for many years excitedly entered the passage. They didn't know that on the other end of the passage, what awaited them was a new beginning. With everyone's combined efforts, the passage between the worlds had almost been completely opened. This caused the laws of heaven and earth of the entire 10,000 spirit world to gradually merge together. The cultivation realms also became unified with each other. The various races could freely cross worlds to cultivate. Without the ambitious people like Seuss, the development of the 10,000 spirit world was going well. Some worlds were lacking in resources, so the experts among them took the initiative to leave and go to the trial realm to seek opportunities. Now that the 10,000 worlds were connected, they could enter the trial realm without the demon realm. Because there was no way to connect to the immortal Tao realm, the Guardian's mission here was almost over. Therefore, after Zi Chen discussed with Old Man Black and Old Man White, he opened the door for the monitors. If they wanted to, they could also head straight to the Lawbreaker realm and cultivate there. Is everyone in the immortal spells world an expert? After everything was arranged, Zi Chen asked the question that had been bothering him. Balek said, that's not the case. There are also some very ordinary existences. Of course, these are very ordinary, but they are all amazing experts here. To Balek, the immortal techniques world was a very long time ago. It was so long ago that his memories were already distorted. The two of them had witnessed the rise of Ji Shan, and they had even seen the experts of the current era before Ji Shan. After that, the Saint Spirit world encountered all kinds of unforeseen events. Although many geniuses appeared, they all disappeared in the long river of history. Until the appearance of Zi Chen, who was fortunate enough to achieve Ji Shan's achievements. For example, even if we are in the immortal spells world, our true battle strength is not as good as yours now, Balek said. The Lawbreaker realm is located in the middle of the 10,000 spirits world and the immortal spells world. It's like a special transition zone. Back then, Heaven's chosen realm cultivators could enter the immortal spells world directly. But if they go to the Lawbreaker realm, their battle strength will be higher when they enter the immortal spells world in the future. Balek thought for a while and said, the path of spiritual cultivation, no matter where it is, has to be walked in the end. Seeing that Zi Chen was very curious about the immortal spells world, Balek asked, have you found a way to open the immortal spells world? Zi Chen said, not yet, but I think there is a way to try. Balek said, if it really works, I suggest not to try it lightly. Zi Chen looked at Balek. Balek said, the passageway will not close for no reason. The immortal spells world must be in great danger. So before opening the passageway, try to accumulate some strength. Zi Chen had told Ji Hong about this before. If they really wanted to find a way to enter the immortal spells world, they must have a large number of 9 forces realm cultivators. Only then could they be at ease. Even if they were to go to war, having more people was also an advantage. After chatting with Balek, Zi Chen thought of a way, or rather, a direction. That day, he returned to Dharma Breaker City. The monk and the others had already reached the 9 forces realm. If they continued to cultivate, there was almost no possibility of growth. So they did what they could here. Besides Su Meng Yarrow, Zi Chen called them all over. Everyone looked at Zi Chen. All of you go to the trial realm and use the passageway there to enter the void. Seeing their puzzled expressions, Zi Chen explained, in the void, there are many broken worlds. You should know that. Go to those broken worlds and try your luck. Back then, the Tao sword that Zi Chen had obtained could even cut open the heavenly demon ultimate treasure of the unshackled spiritual demons. It could be seen that the items there were extraordinary. Or rather, they were items from the immortal spells world. Although some were broken, they could still exert some power. So before the passageway opened, they tried to find more items from the immortal spells world. This way, even if they faced danger in the immortal spells world in the future, they would have some ability to protect themselves. During this time, Zi Chen specially reminded everyone not to get close to the Milky Way vortex. Not everyone was able to wake up after entering the abyss of life. So everyone left. Zi Chen began to connect the passageway between the two worlds. Like an old bull, he worked diligently. Time passed. In a flash, 100 years had passed. Zi Chen's completion rate was less than 1/5. In these 100 years, the number of Heaven's Choice Realm cultivators who came from the Tianwu world to the Dharma Breaker world had exceeded 20,000. However, this number would slowly decrease. After all, it was extremely difficult to advance to the Heaven's Choice Realm. The second 100 years had passed. The number had decreased to 10,000. This number surprised Zi Chen. But thinking about it carefully, it was understandable. Now that the 10,000 worlds were connected, one would appear in each world every 100 years. The number would exceed 10,000. 100 years after another. In the 700th year, Zichen finally successfully opened the passageway between the two worlds. Next, there was no need for the Black Tower to pass through. As long as he entered the transportation array, he would be able to smoothly reach the two worlds. Zichen could finally rest. He put away the passageway that the Black Tower had built. After some hesitation, Zichen went to find the woman living on the 7th floor. She seemed to have expected Zichen to come. When she saw him, she said, "You want to open the door to the immortal spells world." Chapter 5197. Zichen shook his head when he saw the anticipation in the woman's eyes. The woman was unhappy. "If you don't want to open the passage, why did you come to me? Chat. Do we know each other?" Zichen said, "I want to know how to open it in advance. If I need to make preparations, I'll do it earlier." The woman said calmly, "The Black Tower is the passage. You don't need to prepare. If you're willing, I can open it for you now." Zichen was very surprised by this answer. It was unbelievable. For many years, countless people had tried to find the passage to the immortal spell world, but none succeeded. Lei Zhangke had even colluded with others to scheme against Saint Zichen and annihilate his own people for a set of coordinates that did not even exist. But now, the woman said the Black Tower was the passage. So simple. What's so strange about that? The woman said impatiently, "Ji Shan went to the immortal spell world and came back. He must have left a way out. Otherwise, how are you going to go up? Would he really seal all of you up and make you unable to leave for eternity?" Zichen nodded and turned to leave. "Hey!" Seeing Zichen about to leave, the woman suddenly shouted, "With your current strength, you can enter the immortal spell world." When Ji Shan entered the immortal spell world, he wasn't as strong as you are now. Zichen said, "Let's wait for a while. Let's wait until this world is fully prepared. I believe that Senior Ji Shan sealed this place back then for the same reason." With that, Zichen left. The woman was left alone. She stood there forlornly. After knowing the way to leave, Zichen had an idea. Next, he would cultivate the Nine Powers realm. When Ji Shan suddenly descended and closed the passage between the two worlds, he left behind the Black Tower. He hoped that one day, when this world was strong enough, he could open the passage and enter the immortal spell world. Zichen walked outside shattering Dharma City and started to ask for directions. He wanted to find as many resources as he could. Next, he didn't do it for himself. He just wanted more Nine Powers realm cultivators to appear in this world. Ji Shan had planned to do so back then. But he didn't know that the Saint Spirit realm was in chaos. After countless years, a true number one had finally appeared. It was only now that everything was on the right track. After such a long time, he wondered if the people above had persisted until now. Zichen could understand why the woman was so anxious. Although Miao Miao didn't say much, from her words, he could guess that the relationship between this woman and Ji Shan was not shallow. The relationship between the woman and Miao Miao was extremely bad. Zichen didn't know what was going on, nor did he try to find out. However, he clearly would not enter the immortal spell world rashly. Over the next few decades, Zichen discovered a black stone vein and a killing crystal vein. He sent a message to Xiao Wei about the Blackstone mine, and she sent someone to investigate and mine it. At Zichen's current level, all the resources in this world were useless to him. When he discovered the kill crystal mine, he called Yuan Sha over and let him mine it. Perhaps, there would be other members of the slaying clan who could be revived. Zichen's slaying spirit had always been in the kill crystal mine that he first discovered, and it was still constantly absorbing the killing intent within. One day, Zichen unexpectedly saw a river that came from a mountain stream. This surprised him. Because this world originally only had endless galaxies and very little vegetation. There were almost no real rivers. But now, it seemed different. Walking past the mountain stream, Zichen saw a large patch of green grass, which made him stunned. The first time he saw such plants was when he followed Eugene to the depths of Pofa City. He looked up at the sky. It seemed that the rules of this world were gradually recovering. As expected, as he kept moving forward, Zichen saw more plants and some bright flowers. This world was returning to normal. Until one day, Zichen saw a small beast. As the first living creature in this world with complete rules, it could be called an ancestor in the future. Zichen didn't destroy a mutated beast that could be called an ancestor in the future just for himself. As he continued forward, he didn't gain much. But the spiritual energy in this world was obviously more abundant. In the end, Zichen saw a patch of green that extended to the end of his vision, connecting with the blue sky. The rules of this world were completely complete. Pofa City was no longer divided into inside and outside. Other than that, there were many cities built here for the spiritual cultivators who came from the 10,000 spirit world to live in. Where there were people, there would naturally be Jianghu. There were city lords in the cities, and there were also some forces that fought for benefits. Regarding this, Su Mengyaro, as the chief manager, didn't forcefully interfere. Appropriate competition was beneficial for the growth of one's realm, as long as it wasn't too excessive. The monk and the others didn't return. They stayed in the void, looking for some opportunities. The 10,000 spirit world had been completely connected, and there were almost no secrets to speak of. But there was a sky beyond heaven that no one had discovered. This place was even more mysterious than the Pofa world. There were 3 people and 1 beast that had been searching for this place for a long time. The person in the lead was wearing a black robe. He was handsome, but his expression was a little cold. If someone was here, they would definitely recognize him. Zichen, the strongest person in the world. His name had spread throughout the 10,000 spirit world, and there was no one who didn't know him. He was indeed Zichen, but he wasn't that Zichen. It was a little contradictory. It wasn't contradictory. My lord, after so many years, you still haven't found her? The person standing on the left of Zichen asked. The person standing on the right was holding a small beast. He smiled. Lady, you're in a hurry? Are you thinking of your little lover? Call me Lady. The person on the left turned around. You changed your name to Lei Tianxia, but I didn't. Lei Tianxia smiled. So, you have to thank me. If I didn't change this name, would the Ling race have the time and place? Saying this, Lei Tianxia looked at the small beast in his arms. Xuewu, don't you think so? Xuewu whimpered a few times, seemingly very dissatisfied. Lei Tianxia said, it's just that we didn't greet each other, we'll meet again. Lei Tianxia seemed to be unsure, so he asked again, my lord, is that so? Zichen, who was walking in front, said, it's not a big problem. His voice was calm, but it was a little cold. He used to be Zichen, the commander of the Lei clan. We seem to be moving in the void, but we've actually crossed countless dimensions. Zichen looked at the void in front of him. If we want to find that place, other than strength, we also need some luck. Then, there was a slight change in his cold expression. It seems that our luck is pretty good. After saying that, Saint Zichen took a step forward and disappeared into the void. Lei Tianxia and Lei Di quickly followed. They appeared in a place called Heavens Beyond. This place wasn't big, only a few 100 feet wide. There was an altar in the center. Saint Zichen looked at the altar in front of him and said, the coordinates that Lei Zhangke wanted back then are here. Both of them were shocked. This was the passage to the immortal spell realm. Zichen walked to the altar, however, even if he can get here, he won't be able to open it. Lei Tianxia and Lei Di stood on the left and right. Zichen nodded and said, all right. Lei Tianxia said, are we leaving just like that? Should we greet that little Lord Zichen? There's no need. Ji Shan left 2 paths. Zichen looked up at the sky. If he can get there, we'll meet. Both of them nodded. Lei Tianxia handed Xuewu over to Zichen. Xuewu looked at Zichen with fear. Although both of them looked the same, their personalities were completely different. This person was very cold, and his words and actions were very cold. Zichen was very gentle and approachable. Perhaps that was why he only had Lei Tian and Lei Di by his side. In this world, there were only 3 lonely people. On the other hand, Zi Chen had countless friends. Lei Tianxia and Lei Di flew to the altar at the same time. Both of them turned into laws. Only the laws of heaven and earth in Ji Shan boundary could open this passage. In the next moment, the altar shone brightly. Like a sword of light, it shot into the sky. Chapter 5198. The plot needs to be sorted out, so I won't be updating today. Thunder Warrior has no updates today. It is currently in your hands, please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5199. Zi Chen returned to the Qianwu continent. Everything was normal here. Because the passage to the Lawbreaker world was placed here, the Qianwu continent became more and more prosperous. If the Saint Spirit world had become the core of the 10,000 Spirit world, then the Qianwu continent was the core of the Saint Spirit world. With Zi Chen's title as the strongest person in the 10,000 Spirit world, the Qianwu continent was the safest place in the world. Everyone gathered here, and all the experts also came here. Zi Chen was very satisfied with the development of the Qianwu world. The only regret was that he couldn't completely move this world to the Lawbreaker world. Su Mengyao also returned. In the Lawbreaker world, dozens of cities had been built, and there would be more in the future. Everything was going according to plan, and there was no need for her to supervise. This time, she could relax after returning to the Qianwu continent. Therefore, she followed Zi Chen and began to tour the 10,000 Spirit world. Looking at the scenery. As for Wang Xian and the others, they were still in the void. The monk, who had been in the void for countless years, saw a palm-sized fragment. At first, he just glanced at it unintentionally. But in the next moment, the monk felt a familiar aura. He walked in. He saw a dilapidated ancient Buddhist temple. The world was filled with Buddhist power, as if cicadas were singing. The monk's eyes lit up. This kind of place was very rare, so he immediately entered the Buddhist temple. He saw a Buddha with angry eyes holding a Buddhist monk's knife. The monk stood in front of the Buddha silently, as if he had fallen into meditation. After an unknown period of time, the monk put his palms together and chanted a Buddhist chant. Amitabha. Boom. The Buddha collapsed, and the Buddhist monk's knife flew toward the monk. The Buddhist power that filled this world also dissipated. The monk bowed sincerely again, in a good mood. After so many years, he finally had a weapon that he could use. Similar scenes were happening in other places in the void. It had been more than 1,000 years since the devil ape and the others entered the void. They tried their best to find more opportunities and find things that were useful to them. They were preparing to enter the immortal spell world. The woman in the black tower was already anxious. Zi Chen was still waiting. He was very patient. Do you know how many years have passed? Has the crisis of the immortal spell world been resolved? You only care about the myriad spirit realm. Have you ever thought about the immortal spell realm? Perhaps, they are already in imminent danger, and are waiting for you to break through the heavens and enter to provide assistance. Zi Chen brought along the black tower, and a woman's voice sounded from within the black tower. She lost her patience and deliberately interfered with Zi Chen, preventing him from enjoying the scenery with Su Mengyao, sightseeing. Zi Chen had no reaction to this. He wasn't sure about the situation in the immortal spell world, but regardless of the situation in the immortal spell world, the 10,000 spirit world couldn't afford to fall into chaos again. If they were going to fight in the sky, they had to be fully prepared. Otherwise, they would really be wiped out. Time. Right now, Zi Chen didn't lack this at all. There was no lack of time in the entire myriad spirit realm. Therefore, as long as he was patient enough, Zi Chen could wait until the myriad spirit realm had countless 9 forces realm cultivators before entering the immortal technique world. Even if these people did not go to the immortal spells world for the time being, as long as there were enough experts, they could stop the extra-legal spirit demons from coming back. After all, once Zi Chen left, there would be no absolute battle power, and it would not be so serious to deal with the extra-legal spirit demons. In the blink of an eye, another 1,000 years had passed. There were already enough 9 forces realm cultivators in the shattering spell world. It was time to open the passageway. After 1,000 years of urging by the woman, Zichen finally returned to the depths of shattering spell world and came to the dilapidated passageway. Ji Hong, Su Mengyaro, and the people of the Killing Souls tribe and the Annihilating Shadow tribe were also here. Besides them, the demonic ape, the monk, Miao Miao, the 8 heads, and the others had also received the news and returned. There were also the 2 old men, black and white, and some of the guardians who should have returned to the immortal spell world long ago. They looked at the passageway in front of them with a hint of anticipation in their eyes. The immortal spell world was about to open. Zichen looked around and said, "Everyone, we still don't know what the situation is in the immortal spell world, so when the passageway opens, I will go and take a look first." No one had any objections. Zichen finally took out the Black Tower. The woman in the Black Tower had been waiting impatiently for a long time. Just as Zichen took out the Black Tower, she took the initiative to appear, then mobilized her magic power and began to control the Black Tower. She was the key to opening the passageway. Hum. The Black Tower trembled and flew toward the abandoned passageway in front of them. Then, with the Black Tower as the foundation, it forcefully connected to the passageway. Hum. Strong light shone in all directions, and the passageway under the Black Tower was activated. It was tightly connected to the Black Tower and became a whole. A strong light flew out from the top of the tower and then went straight to the sky. The light beam pierced through the sky. The passageway to the immortal spell world that had been sealed for countless years was now open. Of course, no one knew that as early as 1,000 years ago, someone had opened another passageway and entered the immortal spell world. Zichen had lost his connection with the Black Tower, and now the Black Tower had become a passageway. The passageway was shining, and it had successfully connected to the immortal spell world. Everyone's expression became incomparably excited. However, they also became very anxious. Zichen took a deep breath and swept his gaze across the crowd. Everyone nodded in agreement. "Wait for me to come back." Zichen stepped into the passageway. With a flash of light, Zichen disappeared. The surroundings were filled with exclamations, and the monitors were filled with emotions. After so many years, the immortal spell world was finally connected. At this moment, the woman who opened the passageway suddenly stepped forward, ignoring everyone's dissuasion, and stepped into the passageway. She actually wanted to forcefully enter the immortal spell world. Miao Miao glanced at the woman with a complicated expression. Hum. The light trembled. The woman's figure disappeared. However, in the next moment, another powerful force surged out. The woman was shocked out of the passageway. Everyone's expression changed, not knowing what had happened. Miao Miao stepped forward and helped her up. There was a trace of blood at the corner of the woman's mouth. She looked at the passageway in front of her and muttered, "I should have gone in, I should have been the first to go in." The woman was in a daze and regretted it. She couldn't enter the passageway now. As for why, she didn't know. The others were puzzled, but none of them tried. Compared to this woman, they were more willing to believe in Zichen. They were even a little worried that this woman's sudden shock would affect Zichen. Zichen arrived at the immortal spell world. In his imagination, this place must be filled with immortal energy, like a painting. Even after the baptism of war and fire, the immortal power and spiritual power that filled it was definitely much stronger than the 10,000 spirit realm. The 2 old men, black and white, had also mentioned some things about the immortal spell world. It was not an exaggeration to call this place a paradise. Zichen had arrived. He had finally seen the legendary immortal spell realm. However, what he saw was not a paradise. Instead, it was a ruin. Chapter 5200. What appeared in Zichen's eyes was not a fairyland, but a wasteland. The world was a scene of devastation. As far as his eyes could see, bones stood tall, and the cold wind was biting cold. There were no signs of life here. This was too different from what he imagined, with cranes flying in the sky, immortal herbs everywhere, and celestial horses circling around. Could it be that I've come to a battlefield? Zichen looked further into the distance. It seemed that the whole world was the same. He walked forward with doubts in his heart. Could it be that he was too late, and this world had fallen in the war? But he should have seen some life. In fact, There was nothing here. Zichen continued to walk forward. The bones around him were left behind by some huge beast after it died in battle. Who knew how many years had passed, but they still existed. Zichen picked up a bone from the side. The bone staff he got back then was a bone weapon. As soon as he picked it up, the bone weathered in his hand. Then, with a light kick, a tall skeleton turned into ashes. Zichen shook his head. This was indeed an ancient battlefield, and there were no signs of life at all. After a quarter of an hour, Zichen found an important problem. There was no spiritual power in this world. The whole world was dead silent. This discovery made Zichen completely stunned. If there was no energy in this world, how could one recover power once it was consumed? No matter where, the energy of heaven and earth was the foundation of a cultivator. If there was no energy to recover in this world, wouldn't that mean one had to slowly wait for death? Just like when Zichen first entered the Lawbreaker realm, if it wasn't for the extreme energy given by the old man, he wouldn't have been able to survive at all. Could it be that this place was the same as the Lawbreaker realm? If one wanted to survive, they had to rely on external objects. But looking around, it was a ruin. There were no galaxies or Lawbreaker beasts, so it was impossible to get energy even if one wanted to. Right at this time, Zichen suddenly saw a bright light, flashing one after another. He immediately went forward. After coming to this world, this was the first time he saw something other than loneliness. However, before he could get close to the light, the ground suddenly shook. Something jumped out from the ground and rushed toward the light. His speed was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived at the location of the light. He grabbed the light and laughed. Then, he turned to look at Zichen, turned around, and ran away. "Hey, wait!" Zichen shouted. It would have been better if he hadn't shouted. Once he did, the other party's speed became even faster. In the blink of an eye, he was already several hundred feet away. Then, he drilled back into the ground. By the time Zichen arrived, there was only a very small hole in the ground. A normal person would not be able to get in at all. He really didn't know how that person got in. "Hello, may I ask, where is this place?" Zichen shouted into the small hole. His voice was transmitted into the hole. There was no response. Did he leave? Zichen stood up and looked into the distance. At this moment, his face was filled with confusion. What exactly was that light from before? Why did that person run? Zichen tried to extract energy from this world, but there was no energy to speak of. Once he consumed too much energy, how would he recover? This was Zichen's biggest worry at the moment. At the same time, it might also be the greatest danger in this world. If he couldn't count on this world, then what about relying on himself? Zichen took out a piece of black stone from his spirit ring. This was a high-quality soul stone, which contained extraordinary power. Back then, when Zichen hadn't reached the 9 forces state, he had refined this thing. As soon as the black stone was in his hand, a strange power fell on the black stone. In the next moment, the black stone was broken down layer by layer. A ray of light appeared. It was extremely bright. Zichen looked at the light in his hand, and his eyes lit up. Because this was a ray of power, and it was a very pure ray of power. He couldn't help but think that the light he saw before was also a light of power. Swoosh! A streak of light suddenly broke out of the ground from the side, charging straight at Zichen. Zichen had been on guard. As he reached out his hand, the light spot disappeared. He took a few steps back and dodged the sneak attack of the light shadow. The light shadow wasn't sneak attacking, but was after the light. After the attack missed, the light shadow drilled back into the ground. This time, Zichen saw clearly that the light shadow had used some kind of spell to shrink its body and drill into this small hole. "Excuse me, where is this place?" Zichen looked at the hole and asked again. There was still no response from inside. Seeing this, Zichen took out the light again. "Tell me where this is, and I'll give it to you." There was still no response from the hole. Zichen said again, "I'm a man of my word. Tell me where this is, and I'll give it to you. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I'll believe you?" At this moment, a voice came from the hole. This voice was a little young, and it was a girl's voice. Obviously, it wasn't the person from before. Chen was a little surprised. Then what do you want? Of course, give it to me first, and I'll tell you, the voice said again. Chen felt that this made sense, and immediately threw the light spot into the hole. Alright, can you tell me where this place is now? I didn't expect there to be such a brainless fool in this wasteland. The voice came from the hole. Are you from the Pure Land? Pure Land. Wasteland. Chen heard two very important pieces of information, and immediately asked, can you tell me in detail? Talking consumes energy. The voice sounded again. Seeing that you're a fool, I'll give you a piece of advice. Before the ancestor beast appears, quickly find a hole to hide in. This way, not only can you save your life, but you can also reduce energy consumption. An image appeared in Chen's mind. It was the scene when he first entered the Lawbreaker world and encountered the Lawbreaker beast. And now, the words save your life and reduce energy consumption made him think that perhaps this place was the same as the Lawbreaker world. Back then, the last place Ji Shan went was the Lawbreaker world. And then from there, he returned to the immortal spell world. Could it be that the two were connected? Chen planned to go back and tell everyone what he found. This place was currently revealing something strange, so he didn't recommend that everyone come here first. As soon as he turned around, he saw a beast appear in the distance. It was a strange beast completely composed of bones. There was not a trace of flesh and blood on its body. Only in its head, there was a flickering soul fire. Chen had already seen this kind of creature when he was in the Zhonwu continent. It had a sharp mouth and was constantly searching for something underground. Suddenly, it seemed to have found its target and immediately exerted force to burrow into the ground. A moment later, it came out of the ground with a person in its mouth. Save me, save me. The other party was shouting loudly, extremely terrified. It was the person who had obtained the light spot and laughed. The bone beast that returned to the ground swallowed the other party in a few mouthfuls. Shrill screams continued to ring out. Chen stood there in a daze. The bone beast also knew how to eat. Would it fall out of its abdomen as soon as it swallowed it? Sure enough, Chen's guess came true. The human that the bone beast had just swallowed immediately fell out of its abdomen. Because it didn't have a physical body, its body couldn't store anything at all. But in the next moment, Chen's expression suddenly changed. Because what fell out wasn't a human. It was a bone. Chapter 5201. This scene completely stunned Chen. He had never seen such a scene. A person's flesh and blood actually disappeared after being swallowed. He stood there, motionless. He looked a little silly. The skeleton beast turned its head and saw him. The soul fire in its mind began to flicker violently. It charged forward in a rampage, shattering many large bones in its path. This was the first time Chen had encountered a strange creature. He didn't know how strong the creatures of this world were. He took a step forward, and his body lit up. The skeleton beast suddenly exerted its strength and pounced towards Chen. A powerful aura came head-on. Chen punched out. Bang! The skeleton beast was sent flying by the powerful shockwave. It rolled a few times on the ground and seemed to have sensed Chen's strength. It turned around and ran. Chen also left. He wanted to inform the people below of his recent discovery. But soon, he realized that he didn't find the way back. This made his expression change. Did the passageway disappear? He spread out his soul power to investigate the surroundings, but he didn't find anything. This made Chen's mood immediately turn bad. There was something strange going on here. He wanted to send the news back. After calming down, Chen discovered a problem. That woman didn't appear. According to her personality, she would definitely come up. She had wanted to come to the immortal spell world for a long time. Back then, in order to force him, she said a lot of unpleasant words. But she didn't appear. There were only two possibilities. One was that the teleportation was random, so the two sides were not in the same place. The other was that there was a problem with the teleportation channel and she couldn't come up. If it was the former, it would be very troublesome. It meant that it was a one-way teleportation. One could only come up and not go down. But if it was the latter, there was still some hope. Zichen turned his head again and saw another person beside him. This was a petite figure. It should be the person who took away his spiritual light. What do you mean by wasteland and pure land? Zichen asked again. He wanted to know the current situation. You don't even know this. Are you from the divine spirit world? The other party was very curious. Her voice was young. She had long hair, but it covered her face, making it impossible to see what she looked like. Divine world? Zichen was taken aback. Isn't this the immortal spells world? Immortal spell world? The girl was stunned. This is the wasteland. Zichen was sure that this was the immortal techniques world. This was because the passageway led to the immortal Tao realm. As for the name of the wasteland, Zichen guessed that it might have something to do with the name of the place. He decided not to guess where the divine spirit world was for the time being. He asked again, "What's in the wasteland?" The girl pointed at the skeletons around her. "There are these things. If we're lucky, we might be able to dig out a light of law from it." Looking at Zichen's puzzled expression, the girl said, "It's the light from before." Zichen nodded. It seemed like it was the same as the light of the sorcerer world. "Are there only these things in the wasteland?" The girl nodded. "Other than the battlefield ruins, there are also the ancestral beasts. You've already seen them." Zichen asked again, "What about the Pure Land?" Pure Land. The girl's eyes shone with anticipation. When the immortals die, the Pure Land is born. It's said that every immortal's death will give birth to a Pure Land. In the Pure Land, you don't have to worry about being found by the ancestral beasts, nor do you have to worry about dying without the power of law. That's an immortal realm, a true immortal realm. Zichen did not know what was in the Pure Land, but he believed that the immortal techniques world he was looking for should be in the Pure Land. Since the Pure Land is so good, why don't you go? Why stay here? When Zichen asked this question, the girl turned to look at him as though she was looking at an idiot. You can only go to the Pure Land with the light of law. Without it, you can't go in at all. The girl pointed at the ruins and said, "This used to be our territory. Now that he's dead, I'll give you half." Hearing the girl's words, Zichen was taken aback. "Do I have to keep hiding underground?" The girl said with disdain, "If you don't have the strength, you can't even go underground." Zichen looked at the hole beside him. It was too small. Even if he had the strength, he could not hide in it. As the number one person in the 10,000 spirits world, he had to hide underground as soon as he came to the immortal techniques world. If news of this spread, he would definitely be laughed at. Zichen said, "I want to go to the Pure Land. How do I get there?" The girl glanced at Zichen. "I've talked too much and used up too much energy. Can you give me a light of law?" Zichen took out another black stone. After it appeared in his hand, he began to disintegrate it. Zichen tried to sense it, but he did not find any trace of the flow of laws. The black stone disappeared, and a light of power appeared in his hand. The girl reflexively flew towards Zichen and took the light of law. After that, she entered the underground. Zichen asked, "Now can you tell me how to go to the Pure Land?" To go to the Pure Land, you need at least 100 lights of law. Do you have that? Zichen nodded. He did have this number of black stones. Then I'll take you to Old Yarrow. He has a way to take people to the Pure Land. The girl said, "But Old Yarrow wants 10 lights of law as a reward every time." Zichen said, "Take me to Old Yarrow, and I'll give you 10 lights of law as a reward too." Now that Zichen had a certain number of black stones, he did not have to worry about the lack of power. "Do you mean what you say?" "I, Zichen, always mean what I say. I can't trust you. Give me power first." Zichen took out 5 black stones and disintegrated them into 5 lights of law. Zichen threw them into the hole. "Why are there only 5? The girl asked again. "When we get there, I'll give you the other 5, Zichen said. "No, I can't trust you." Zichen took out another 5 lights of law and put them into the hole. "Where did you get these black stones?" the girl asked curiously. "I dug them out." "Oh." After that, there was no sound. Zichen said, "Now it's time to lead the way, right?" The girl said, "I've said a lot. Give me another 5 lights of law." This is the last time. Zichen took out another 5 black stones and converted them into power. The girl walked out from the other side. She looked at Zichen. Come with me. She led the way in front, carefully looking around. Zichen watched her and found that the girl used almost the same amount of strength with each step. She had extremely precise control of her own power. Even if it was just a simple walk, she would not take an extra step. What's your realm now? Zichen suddenly asked. What's realm? The girl asked back. It's the level of power. Zichen's fist lit up. That's it. Chapter 5202. Dizziness, discomfort, barely managed to write 2 new chapters. Stopping for a day, tomorrow it will be better to update. Thunder Marshal will not be updated today. It is currently in your hands, please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5203. Zichen looked at the girl in confusion. He clearly had the power now, so why would it be gone so quickly? After walking for a while, Zichen seemed to understand. His power had been consumed, but there was nothing to replenish it. In this way, when his power was exhausted, wouldn't it be gone? Next, he asked the girl a few more questions, and even asked if she had heard of the name Ji Shan. The girl kept saying no, or didn't know. My parents are dead. They never went to the Pure Land in their lives. Although they always yearned for that place, they never had enough light of law. Speaking of her parents' death, the girl's expression was very calm, without the slightest sadness. How did they die? Zichen asked. They were found and killed by the ancestor beast. The girl said, the ancestor beast is our natural enemy. After that, the two didn't speak, mainly because Zichen didn't speak. The girl never took the initiative to speak. She always answered whatever Zichen asked, perhaps to preserve her power. After walking for about 10 miles, the girl looked around, as if she was looking for something. Zichen didn't ask. After hesitating, the girl immediately took out a ray of power and placed it in her hand. Bang! Someone drilled out of the ground. The girl immediately retreated to Zichen's side, holding the light of law in her hand. I'm looking for old Yao. Is he still alive? Why are you looking for old Yarrow? The person who drilled out of the ground drilled back into the ground. I want to go to the Pure Land. I hope he can lead the way. As soon as the girl's voice fell, there was a loud sound around. A total of 5 people appeared, all staring at the girl, their eyes emitting a greedy light. You want to go to the Pure Land? A person in front looked the girl up and down. Not me, it's him. The girl pointed at Zichen next to her. I want to go to the Pure Land. Please lead the way. Zichen also said. That person turned to look at Zichen. To go to the Pure Land, you need 100 light of law. Are you ready? Zichen nodded and said, I'm ready. As soon as these words were spoken, their expressions changed. Then, without hesitation, they charged towards Zichen. The girl let out a scream and immediately drilled into the ground. Zichen took a step forward. The ground shook slightly, and all the bones in the surroundings turned into dust. Zichen punched out. Bang! The first person at the front flew out 300 feet. Then, with a kick, the second person was sent flying. Bang! 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 The last 3 people were also sent flying one after another. After the 5 of them landed, their bodies were not affected. Cold light flickered in their eyes. One of them shouted, "Kill him." Zichen's body suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the person who had spoken. He grabbed that person's head and ruthlessly smashed it into the ground. Boom! The earth trembled as a shockwave spread out in all directions. Everywhere it passed, the scattered bones turned into dust and disappeared. A spacious area with a radius of 10 feet appeared. The ground was reddish-brown. That person's body struggled several times before falling down and stopped moving. His body then decomposed. His flesh and blood disappeared, leaving only white bones behind. In the scattered bones, a pure light appeared. It was the light of law. The other 4 people were stunned and looked at this scene in shock. The girl also drilled out of the ground again. Who else can lead the way? Zichen's eyes flashed with killing intent, Whoever leads the way can live. Me. Immediately, one person opened his mouth and spoke very decisively. As for the other three, their reaction was slow. Seeing that the situation was not good, they wanted to hide underground. Buzz. In the field, a wind blew out of thin air. Zichen's body was like a ghost, moving quickly. Bang! 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 3 sounds rang out one after another. 3 people flew high and smashed heavily on the ground. They landed on the ground and became bones. Only the person in front was trembling. Only he survived. The girl was also shocked. She previously saw that the other party was a fool and easy to fool, so she brought him here. She didn't expect him to be so cruel. These few light of law are your reward. Zichen looked at the trembling person. The other party hurriedly nodded, terrified. Zichen said again, now, go and give me the remaining light of law. Huh! The other party was stunned again. Zichen's eyes flickered with a cold light. Go, I'll go right away. The other party drilled into the ground again. A moment later, he took out more than 20 light of law. These light of law were placed in 3 cloth bags. After Zichen opened them, he checked them one by one. During this time, he glanced at the person, but he didn't say anything. Next, the other party led the way. The girl still followed. During this time, she wanted to leave, but Zichen refused, saying that he would let her go when he found old Yao. Who is old Yao? Zichen asked. Replying to my lord, old Yao is a person with great magical power. He has a lot of connections and can lead people to the Pure Land. The other party immediately said. Zichen asked again, you've seen old Yao? No, but we've heard of this name. The other party said, in this place, only old Yao can lead us to the Pure Land. The girl had heard of old Yao from her parents, but had never seen him in person. It seemed like old Yao was very famous, but there were probably only a few who had seen him in person. This might have something to do with the fact that these people had never gathered 100 light of law. However, after seeing the methods of the previous few people, Zichen felt that old Yao would most likely be the same. In this kind of world, there were probably not many decent businessmen. The sky was getting dark, and they couldn't continue walking. The two glanced at Zichen, and then drilled into the ground. Zichen found a large rock and sat down. He rejected the girl's invitation. The first person in the all-spirits world was hiding underground on his first night in the immortal spells world. If news of this spread, it would be outrageous. Ji Shan's original intention was to let his subordinates accumulate strength. They came to this world to help, not to hide. The night here was very similar to the world of Dharma Breaker. The wind was very strong. Sometimes, it would pass through the bones, making a whining sound like ghosts crying. Thinking back to the world of Dharma Breaker and the world of Dharma Breaker now, the difference was too great. Then, would there be changes here as well? Or rather, this was how it was. The Pure Land was the immortal spells world. The immortals died, and the Pure Land was born. What level of existence were the immortals? Zichen was a little lost. He didn't notice that an ancestor beast had appeared behind him. It was also a skeleton, and it slowly approached Zichen. When it was less than 100 feet away from Zichen, it suddenly exerted force and flew towards Zichen. It was a sneak attack from behind. Zichen didn't react. He still sat there, leaning against it. Wang. At this moment, a cold light flashed and pierced the other party's head. The soul light was instantly extinguished. Its body fell to the ground, turning into a pile of bones. The light flew back. It was the slaughter spirit. Zichen brought it here. Turning around, Zichen saw a bright light. It was the light of law, but its size was much larger than before. With a sweep of his soul power, the light fell into his palm. Feeling it carefully, the power contained in it was about dozens of times greater than before. Zichen held the light of law in his hand and began to refine it. After walking for a day, he had consumed a lot of energy. Chapter 5204. The two people in the cave had an extraordinary perception of the light of law. But previously, what they felt the most was the danger of death. The ancestral beast had always been a natural enemy to them. Their ancestors had been avoiding the ancestral beast for generations. In their knowledge, the ancestral beast was completely invincible. It was said that only the existence of the Pure Land could kill the ancestral beast. There were even rumors that the Pure Land had hunting teams that specifically targeted the ancestral beast. But those were just rumors. They had never seen it. But today, they saw the invincible ancestral beast die. This was a huge impact on them. The night was silent. The next day, the sky brightened. The two drilled out of the ground again and headed forward. The atmosphere was very quiet along the way. Zichen wanted to know more about this world. Unfortunately, the two's knowledge was limited. Until they came to a special place. There were walls and buildings here. Although they were very simple, there was no need to hide underground. These buildings were all built with stones. They were about the height of a person. There was a house in the center. There were other people guarding it. They all had broken weapons in their hands. The arrival of the three was treated as uninvited guests and was immediately surrounded. "Old Yao, we're looking for Old Yao," the person who led the way said loudly. Soon, Zichen saw Old Yao. This was an old man. He was dressed very delicately, forming a sharp contrast with the sloppy people here. Old Yao looked at Zichen. "You're looking for me?" Because among the three of them, Zichen seemed to be the most extraordinary. Zichen said, "I want to go to the Pure Land." Old Yao smiled. "Do you know the rules?" Zichen took out a cloth bag from his chest. Inside were 10 light of law. Old Yao said, "What's so good about going to the Pure Land? Stay with me and you can at least live." "Why?" the girl suddenly asked. "Can't you live in the Pure Land?" Old Yao said, 100 light of law is just the entry fee. After going to the Pure Land, what will you rely on to live? Without light of law, you will be thrown out sooner or later. Old Yao looked at the girl again. "As for you, you're too young. Other than those with special hobbies, the others won't be interested in you at all. If you want to survive in there, you'll have to try your luck." The girl didn't understand what Old Yao meant. "I'm just leading the way. He's going to the Pure Land." Old Yao looked at Zichen again. "Are you sure?" Zichen tossed the light of 10 spells to Old Yao. Old Yao smiled faintly. "Young man, you are very confident. But do you think that you can make me lead the way for you with just 10 rays of light?" He pointed to the side. "How much light of law do you think is needed to raise these people?" Zichen did not respond to Old Yao. Instead, he looked at the people behind Old Yao. "Do any of you still remember the way?" Everyone was stunned, not understanding what Zichen meant. Zichen pointed at Old Yao. "I'll let whoever can lead the way replace him." The girl took a few steps back. A hint of fear flashed through the eyes of the person leading the way. Old Yao took in the whole scene and laughed. "Little brother, I'm just kidding. Actually, it's better to stay with me than to go to the Pure Land. But if you insist on going, I'm willing to lead the way." Old Yao was indeed a shrewd person. He could sense the danger from the two's reaction. At the same time, he returned the bag to Zichen. "It's fate that we met. The fee for leading the way is waived." Zichen kept the bag. If he could avoid killing, it was better not to. You, follow me. The rest of you stay here." Old Yao casually pointed at 2 people and then set off. "Tell me about the Pure Land. What's inside?" After setting off, Zichen began to ask. The other party must know a lot. Old Yao was not displeased by Zichen's attitude. "There are rich people. All of them are rich. Oh no, most of them are rich. They have the best resources and enjoy an extravagant life." What Zichen wanted to ask was obviously not this question. "There's energy of heaven and earth in the Pure Land?" Old Yao glanced at Zichen. There were not many people living in the wasteland who knew about the energy of heaven and earth. Everyone only knew the light of law, which was the foundation of life. "Yes." Old Yao nodded. He felt that this person was extraordinary. Zichen asked again, "Who controls the Pure Land?" For many years, Old Yao had led the way for many people, but no one asked such a question. Everyone was asking how to survive. And the other party asked questions about the big picture. The master of the Pure Land. Old Yarrow said, rumor has it that a Pure Land will be born after the death of an immortal, and the first person to discover the Pure Land will become the master of the Pure Land. Along the way, Chen had seen too many things. Naturally, he did not believe such a rumor. Perhaps the Pure Land was born after the death of an immortal, but the first person to discover the Pure Land might not be the master of the Pure Land. Perhaps a certain condition needed to be met. Chen asked again, what is the master of the Pure Land's realm? This time, Old Yarrow took a deep look at Chen. None of the questions asked by the other party had anything to do with survival. This was not a question that a person who wanted to go to the Pure Land should ask. It was more like an invader who was inquiring about the Pure Land. It was like treating the Pure Land as prey. You're a rebel? Old Yarrow's expression suddenly changed and he cried out in surprise. The girl and the others did not understand what a rebel was. They had never heard of it. Previously, the girl wanted to leave, but Chen did not agree. What's a rebel? There was a hint of curiosity in Chen's eyes. Some existences who rob the Pure Land under the guise of justice. Wherever they go, the Pure Land will be destroyed. Old Yarrow looked at Chen from head to toe and found that the other party seemed to know nothing about the rebels. He did not know about the Pure Land, nor did he know about the rebels, but he knew about the energy of heaven and earth and his realm. Could he be from the upper realm? Old Yarrow muttered in his heart. Let's talk about the realm. You should know. Chen looked at Old Yarrow. Old Yarrow said, most of the people in the Pure Land are of the spiritual realm. It is said that the master of the Pure Land is of the annihilation realm. Chen knew about the spiritual realm. He was the one at the moment. Could it be that the annihilation realm was the next realm of the spiritual realm? When the sky was about to turn dark, they encountered another stone house. Old Yarrow pointed at the stone house and said, tonight, we will rest here. Tomorrow afternoon, we will be outside the Pure Land. Chen nodded and said, you guys go inside. How would they dare to go inside? Everyone, including the girl, drilled into the ground. Only Old Yarrow walked towards the stone house. During this time, he glanced at Chen and found that Chen walked to a large rock and sat on it. With a flip of his hand, a pot of wine appeared in Chen's hand. He opened the wine pot and drank. Old Yarrow smelled the smell and walked to the door. Seeing this scene, he was more and more certain that this person's background was extraordinary. Perhaps, he came from the upper realm. The night was silent and they did not encounter any ancestral beasts. The next day, they continued to set off. Chapter 5205. The so-called Pure Land was a world of its own. What Chen saw was the entrance to a space. There were guards at the door. Although they looked no different from ordinary people, Chen could sense the aura of energy from them. Just like Old Yarrow. The reason why he dared to have the idea of snatching yesterday was because he could fight. This was different from the girl and the others. The others were empty. They were like ordinary people in the mortal world, without the slightest energy. It's in front. Old Yarrow pointed ahead and said, you need 100 light of law to enter. The girl looked ahead curiously. Through the space door, she seemed to be able to see the environment of the Pure Land. She wanted to go in and take a look, but the conditions didn't allow it. Can I go now? She raised her head and looked at Chen. The other party had refused to let her leave twice, but now that she saw the Pure Land, it could be considered a big regret. At least, it was better than her dead parents. The two always wanted to go outside the Pure Land to take a look, but they couldn't. Follow me. Chen walked forward. What? The girl was stunned. There was a hint of envy in Old Yarrow's eyes. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and follow him. Miss, you're in luck. The girl reacted. She couldn't believe it and quickly followed. But with every step forward, she felt her heart beat faster. It felt unreal. I'm going to enter the Pure Land. Old Yarrow looked at the two's back and murmured, could it be that he likes the younger one? Then he shook his head. As long as he went inside, he could have any kind of person. Why would he bring a dirty person in from the outside? No matter who it was, they had no privileges here. If they wanted to enter, they had to pay enough light of law. What's the background of that person? Old Yarrow turned to look at the person who led the way. The other party shook his head. I don't know. Old Yarrow said again, you seem to be afraid of him. He killed 4 people, and then in one night, he killed an ancestor beast. What? Old Yarrow's face changed. Even an ancestor beast could be killed. This wasn't an ordinary spiritual technique. Now, he was glad that he was able to adapt to the situation. He should have guessed it based on the fact that the other party had sat alone on the big rock for the entire night. When he turned his head again, he saw that Zi Chen and the girl were already at the door. Zi Chen took out 2 cloth bags and handed them to the guard. The girl turned around to look at them. She was clearly shocked and could not believe that this was real. The next moment, the 2 of them disappeared through the door. The others were very envious, but they could only watch. What's your name? Little Bamboo. Bamboo as in bamboo? Yes, Mother said that there is a plant in this world called bamboo. It is full of tenacity and has a strong vitality. She hopes that I can live well like bamboo. This was the first time Zi Chen had heard the girl's name. This was also the first time the girl had seen the Pure Land. The girl's parents only hoped that she could live well. They never expected that she would come to the Pure Land. The Pure Land was actually green, and even the air was fragrant and sweet. A pleasant aura drifted all around. Zi Chen sensed the energy of heaven and earth, but it was different from what he had imagined. The density of spiritual energy in this place could not even be compared to the Spellbreaker world. Was this really a higher-level immortal world? Zi Chen could not help but have doubts in his heart. TSK, here comes another beggar. Seriously, it's so smelly. Wherever the 2 of them passed, passers-by would cover their noses and look at Little Bamboo with disdain. The original Little Bamboo used her hair to cover her face. Not sure if it was because she was excited, but her face was revealed. It was a dirty face. A pair of big eyes were filled with curiosity at everything around them. She heard those voices, but her expression did not change. Not angry? Zi Chen asked. She shook her head. This place is good. Compared to them, I am indeed dirty. They are right. Little Bamboo's tone was calm but serious. It was obvious that she did not care at all. She took a deep breath, as if she wanted to suck in all the energy in the world into her lungs. Wow, as expected of the Pure Land. Little Bamboo shouted excitedly. I feel that there is no need to eat the light of magic here. Just eating air is enough to survive. Zi Chen did not know how to respond, so he remained silent. I have decided. I will stay here and not leave. Little Bamboo was very excited. From now on, I will eat air here. As she spoke, she took out a cloth bag from her bosom. For you. Zi Chen looked at the cloth bag. What? I have a total of 39 light of magic. Consider it my thanks to you. Little Bamboo said. Anyway, I will not go out from now on. I can eat my fill by eating air here. There is no need for these things. For a moment, Zi Chen was speechless. His journey here could be considered difficult, but he had not reached the point where he had to eat air to survive. Right, why did you bring me here? Little Bamboo suddenly asked. Zi Chen said, because if I did not bring you here, you will die. Die? Little Bamboo was stunned at first, then she reacted. She would indeed die. In the wasteland, a person's death was nothing. Zi Chen said again, but I am not sure if bringing you here is helping or harming you. What do you mean? Little Bamboo did not understand. Zi Chen said, if you can eat your fill by eating air here, do you think old Yarrow will say that it is difficult to live here? Little Bamboo's expression changed immediately. She was not stupid. On the contrary, she was very smart and understood Zi Chen's meaning. Actually, it was an insignificant life. Zi Chen could pretend that he did not know. After all, he had already paid Little Bamboo. Her life and death had nothing to do with him. But he could not get past the hurdle in his heart. They continued to walk deeper. This place was like a small city, but the buildings were too close together. Among them, Zi Chen saw the most women. They were all dressed up beautifully and threw flirtatious glances at the passers-by. Little Bamboo looked at them and seemed to have thought of something. Her face gradually turned pale. Zi Chen walked into an inn and asked, "What is the price for a night?" The waiter immediately went forward and smiled apologetically. "Sir, 2 light of magic." Xiao Zhu was shocked that he actually needed 2 light of law in one night. 2 rooms. Zi Chen took out 4 light of magic. "No, 1 room. I will sleep on the floor." Little Bamboo quickly stopped him. This was too scary. In one night, he actually needed 2 rays of light of law. In the past, she could not even use up 2 light of magic in 2 months. The waiter glanced at Zi Chen and then at Little Bamboo. He smiled and said, "The room is not small. It can accommodate 2 people." "Okay." Zi Chen withdrew 1 light of magic and gave the waiter 3. The waiter was stunned. Zi Chen said, "Let me ask you a few questions." The waiter's face was full of smiles again. "Sir, ask away. I will definitely tell you everything I know." Chapter 5206. The waiter quickly came down and came to Zi Chen's side, bowing. He had never seen such a generous customer before. The most generous customer he had ever seen only gave him a little light of law. Zi Chen asked, "Tell me about this Pure Land. I'm very curious." The waiter said, "Sir, you've asked the right person. If you ask anyone else, I don't think anyone can explain the Pure Land." The waiter smiled confidently and said, "The Pure Land is a place for everyone to take refuge. But for those outside the wasteland, they all think that they can survive here. In fact, it's not like that. During the day, the Pure Land is full of vitality. But at night, when the months of demons appear, it's very dangerous to stay in the Pure Land." The waiter glanced at the customer and found that he was very calm. He didn't keep him in suspense and continued, "The months of demons will devour everyone's power. It's even more dangerous than the wasteland. So, in this place, without the light of law, it's difficult to move." Zi Chen said, "Is it okay to stay here at night?" The waiter nodded and said, "As long as you stay in a room supported by spirit gathering, you don't have to worry." Speaking of this, the waiter said proudly, "Sir, you have good taste. In the Pure Land, there are small spirit gathering and large spirit gathering. Our inn is supported by large spirit gathering. At night, not only will we not lose power, but we will also gain some power." The so-called large and small spirit gathering was naturally the formation to gather spiritual power. Zi Chen had mastered this long ago. It seemed that the biggest danger in the Pure Land was at night. This was not much different from the Lawbreaker realm. The difference was that in the Lawbreaker realm, there was a place to shelter from the wind and rain. But not here. At night, power would be lost faster. Zi Chen was a little curious about the months of demons. Because in the wasteland, you couldn't see Xing Chen or the moon at night. The only light was the light of law, or the light of ancestral beast's soul. If it was the former, it was an opportunity. If it was the latter, it was dangerous. After learning about the Pure Land's biggest danger, Zi Chen asked about other things. The tip of the light of law was obviously very effective. The waiter told him everything he knew. The other party told him that those who could do business in the Pure Land all had powerful backup plans. Taking this in as an example, the boss was at the 5th level of the Spirit Spell realm, and at the same time, he was related to Lord Luo. Lord Wei-Luo was the brother-in-law of the Master of the Pure Land. What realm is the Master of the Pure Land? It's a powerful law destroyer, Xiao said solemnly. He is also the only spell destroyer in the Pure Land. Zi Chen nodded. Little Fool glanced at Zi Chen and felt somewhat apologetic for earning a law of light just like that. He lowered his voice and said, "Sir, I think you're not an ordinary person. I've heard a rumor and would like to share it with you." Zi Chen nodded slightly. "I've heard that every master of the Pure Land can borrow the power of the Pure Land to display powerful battle strength. They are said to be invincible." Zi Chen looked at the waiter. The other party said, "This is what I've heard. As for whether it's true or not, I don't know. After all, we can't see a big shot like the Master of the Pure Land." Zi Chen smiled and took out another law of light to give to the other party. Just this rumor alone was worth this. The waiter was very excited. He didn't expect the guest to be so generous and thanked him repeatedly. Zi Chen sat there and continued to wait. Seeing this, the waiter poured a pot of bamboo tea for Zi Chen. This was a gift. Zi Chen smiled and thanked him. An hour later, he finished drinking the tea and went upstairs under the waiter's lead. When he entered the room, Xiaozhu had already finished washing and was sitting there. Her long hair draped down like a black waterfall. Hearing the movement, she turned around. A clean but somewhat childish face appeared in front of Zi Chen. Zi Chen nodded and said, "Not bad. Next, it would be even better to get 2 sets of decent clothes." "Thank you. You're welcome. Anyway, we've agreed that you'll sleep on the floor." Zi Chen walked towards the bedroom. Suddenly, he turned his head and looked at the wooden basin on the table. "What's that?" Xiaozhu said excitedly, "It's water. I deliberately left it behind. Otherwise, it would be too wasteful." Zi Chen asked, "Why did you leave it behind?" "Drink it." Zi Chen was speechless. "The tea will be delivered later. If you want to drink it, just drink more. These, you can deal with them as you see fit." Zi Chen thought for a moment, but he still didn't say that he would throw it away. This was because he wasn't sure if there was such water in other places as well. In any case, there was no water in the wasteland. Zi Chen lay on the bed. The spiritual power here was indeed stronger than outside, but it was extremely limited. What should he do next? Suddenly, a scream came from outside. Zi Chen hurriedly walked out. He saw Xiaozhu sitting on the ground holding her head. "What's wrong?" Zi Chen asked. "I can't go in from here," Xiaozhu said, feeling wronged. Hearing her words, Zi Chen was angry and amused. "If you go in from here, you'll reach the next floor. Go inside and get a blanket. You can sleep here. But, if I don't go into the ground, I won't be able to sleep. Slowly get used to it." Zi Chen lay on the bed again. Now, not only did he have to consider himself, but he also had to consider the girl beside him. Once he left, how would she survive here? He couldn't possibly bring her along wherever he went. Xiaozhu lay on the ground with the blanket covering her body. It was very comfortable, but she couldn't fall asleep. Agitation, excitement, hesitation, panic. All kinds of emotions intertwined. After an unknown amount of time, she finally fell into a deep sleep. Zi Chen didn't sleep. He stood by the window. The evil moon that the waiter mentioned was red. The moonlight shone down, bringing with it coldness. He could clearly feel the existence of the array, isolating the coldness of the moonlight. The next day, the sky was bright. The sunlight illuminated the pure land and fell on the body. Xiaozhu slept very late, but woke up very early. She opened the window and looked outside. She was very excited. So this was the pure land. This was indeed heaven. Everything was beautiful. Zi Chen hadn't thought about where to go next, so he gave her a few more days of accommodation. During the day, he brought Xiaozhu around the Pure Land. At the same time, he told her about the dangers in the Pure Land and reminded her not to come out at night. When Xiaozhu heard this, her face turned pale. It turned out that she couldn't keep eating air here. Previously, she was very excited, but she immediately became depressed. According to last night's standards, she could only stay in the Pure Land for a short 10 days. Now, she finally understood old Yarrow's words. It was just that this place was much better than the wasteland. She didn't want to leave. At night, Xiaozhu continued to sleep on the floor. After dawn, she went out alone. Like a curious baby, she walked in the Pure Land. Zi Chen also went out. He wanted to take a look at the depths of the Pure Land. It was said that the master of the Pure Land was in the deepest part of the Pure Land. Only the master of the Pure Land could enter and leave there. When the sun was about to disappear, Zi Chen walked back. Xiaozhu also came back. Walking into the room, she looked at Zi Chen and said, "I've made up my mind. I want to stay here." Zi Chen looked at her in surprise. "I don't want to go back to the wasteland. I want to stay in the Pure Land. I want to be independent." Xiaozhu said sincerely, "Thank you for bringing me to the Pure Land. Xiaozhu has no way to repay you, so this is the only way." Chapter 5207. Zi Chen frowned and looked at Xiaozhu in front of him. "What did you do today?" She was fine during the day, but when she came back, she seemed to have a stroke. Xiaozhu stood there naked. It was obvious that she was uncomfortable, but she did not put on her clothes. I took a look around today. The light of law can be exchanged for 10 points of light. Living here requires 2 points of light of law per day. In other cheaper places, you only need 1 point of light of law per night. Xiaozhu said. Back then, old Yarrow said that there is only one way for a woman to go here. So, I will use my body to exchange for the light of law. I heard that the first time is more precious. I am willing to use it to thank you. When Xiaozhu said this, her expression was very calm, without any ripples. Zichen said, "Put on your clothes first." Xiaozhu shook her head. "You saved me. This is my way of thanking you. Anyway, after today, I won't be worth anything. I'll become cheap." Zichen said helplessly, "Actually, there are many ways for you to survive." Xiaozhu continued to shake her head. I asked. "This is the only way for a woman to survive here." Seeing that Zichen still wanted to say something, Xiaozhu immediately said, "Since I am in the Pure Land, I will not go out. The wasteland is too harsh. I want to stay here. For this, I am willing to pay any price." Zichen saw Xiaozhu's determination. Actually, for the sake of survival, there was nothing wrong with staying here. However, Zichen could not accept Xiaozhu's choice. Zichen even blamed himself. Because it was his appearance that changed Xiaozhu's fate and gave her this idea. "This is nothing. I didn't know what my mother was doing in the past, but now I know." Xiaozhu said, "Whether it is the wasteland or the Pure Land, this is the only way for a woman to survive." Zichen thought for a while and said, "Have you thought about what if you can't survive like this?" Xiaozhu lowered her head and looked at her underdeveloped body. "I know that compared to them, I have no advantage, but I still want to try." Zichen said, "How about this? Find a place to stay for a night and see if you can adapt." Xiaozhu was still standing there. "Put on your clothes. I'm not interested in the current you." Little Bamboo bit her lips and said, "But I can't give you those lights of law. I need them to survive." Zichen said, "You don't have to give it to me. Let's go. I'll take you somewhere." Xiaozhu put on her clothes again and followed Zichen out the door. Zichen found the waiter and asked him where the cheapest place to stay was. The waiter didn't understand and thought that Zichen didn't want to stay. But he still told him. 1 ray of light of law can be exchanged for 10 points of light of law. That place only requires 1 point of light of law, but the environment is extremely bad. Zichen thanked him and left with Xiaozhu. Seeing that Zichen had no intention of checking out, the waiter was confused. The two of them followed the waiter's directions and walked towards another street. This street was a perfect example of the word cheap. The streets were narrow and dirty. As the two of them arrived, they attracted a lot of attention. There were quite a few women who were throwing flirtatious glances at Zichen. In order to attract Zichen's attention, they were all purposely twisting their bodies. There was an inn in front of them. The two of them walked in. The shopkeeper glanced at the two of them and said, "Single room, 5 points a night, 1 point for each room." Zichen said, 2 rooms for each room." He couldn't just leave Xiaozhu here alone. He looked at Xiaozhu next to him. Xiaozhu immediately took out a ray of light of law. The shopkeeper's eyes flashed with surprise. He turned around and took out 7 rays of light from behind him and placed them on the table in front of him. "It should be 8," Xiaozhu said. 1 ray of light of law can only be exchanged for 9 points here. The shopkeeper glanced at Xiaozhu. "Are you staying? If not, then scram." Xiaozhu put away the 7 rays of light of law. The shopkeeper glanced at her chest and a light flashed in his eyes. Zichen said, "Give me the light of law, I'll keep it safe for you." Xiaozhu looked at Zichen. Zichen said, "If you insist tomorrow, then I won't stop you." Xiaozhu nodded and then gave all the light of law on her to Zichen. Zichen put it in his arms. The shopkeeper's gaze also moved and landed on Zichen. The only thing that satisfied Zichen was that men and women didn't live together. After entering the room, Zichen saw a long bed. At this moment, there were already more than 10 people living in it. The room was filled with a pungent smell. As Zichen walked in, He immediately attracted everyone's attention. It was obvious that Zichen's dressing was incompatible with the environment here. Zichen walked to the corner and sat on the bed. Soon, a few more people walked in. Their gazes landed on Zichen from time to time. In fact, the others were also looking at Zichen. Because he was too unconventional. Zichen sat there with his eyes closed and said, "I advise you all not to provoke me. I'm in a bad mood now." They thought that the immortal spell world was a sacred place. After all, many number one people's lifelong pursuit was to come here. But when they really arrived, it was too disappointing. Immediately, there was laughter from all around. Who would be in a good mood after coming here? The people who lived here would not have a tomorrow. What's wrong? Are you down and out? One of them laughed and said, "Why don't you have some fun with us?" "Yeah, have some fun with us. I see that your skin is soft and tender. You must be very clean." Someone walked towards Zichen. Although he was joking, his eyes were obviously cold. During this time, his eyes were fixed on Zichen's chest. All of Xiao Zhu's light of law was placed there. Zichen opened his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, the other party was sent flying. The others who were still laughing were shocked at this moment. They looked at Zichen in shock. They did not even see the other party make a move, but one of them was sent flying. "Someone hit me! Someone hit me!" The person who was sent flying stood up and shouted loudly. Zichen said coldly, "I'll give you all one night to prepare. Tomorrow morning, I need your shopkeeper to give me an explanation." The person stopped shouting and looked at Zichen. Zichen said, "If you don't, then don't keep this shop." Zichen closed his eyes again. "Believe it or not, it's up to you." The few people who came in later hurriedly left. When the shopkeeper heard what the other party said, he could not help but frown. Could it be that this is a tough one? The person who was sent flying said, "Anyway, it's very strange. I didn't feel anything and was sent flying." Chapter 5208. Zichen sat there. After the previous scene, no one else dared to come over. Obviously, he was a capable person. In the Pure Land, ability represented strength. Moreover, he dared to say such words to the inn's people. Obviously, he was confident. The sky was already dark. At this time, no one dared to go out. Therefore, Luo-san's arrival showed that he was extraordinary. He laughed loudly on purpose so that the people inside could hear him clearly. "Which guy dares to behave atrociously in my place?" Luo-san swaggered in, and the innkeeper immediately whispered in his ear, "Oh, you talk big. I'll go take a look." Luo-san walked into the room and frowned. "Damn it, what's that smell?" The person who was sent flying by Zichen immediately pointed at Zichen in the corner. "Sir, it's him." Luo-san looked at Zichen and shouted, "You're the one who doesn't know what's good for him?" The others curled up in fear. Zichen looked at Luo-san. "Is this the inn's reply?" "Oh, you talk big." Luo-san smiled. "Well, come out and fight with me. I can't do it here." After saying that, Luo-san left. Then, he walked out of the inn. It was night now. Daring to stand under the evil moon was a proof of strength. In this Pure Land, there was an unwritten rule. As long as one dared to stand under the evil moon to fight, the chance of winning would increase by half. Zichen walked out of the room. The commotion here was huge. Many people had already walked out of the room. There were men and women. Among them was Xiao Zhu. She looked at Zichen with worry on her face. Zichen did not look at Xiao Zhu or the others. He did not even look at the innkeeper. Amidst the exclamations, he also walked out. It was the first time he stood under the evil moon. The evil moon contained a strange magical power that was forcibly extracting the strength of his body. The speed of the loss of strength was indeed faster than in the wasteland. However, it was still within a controllable range. Luo-san saw this scene and his face could not help but change. Daring to stand here was enough to prove that he was a tough one. The expression of the shopkeeper standing at the entrance also changed. Things seemed to be a little out of his expectations. "Brat, tell me your name." "I, Luo-san, don't kill nameless people." Luo-san stared coldly at Zichen. "If you want to fight, Then fight. What's with all the nonsense? Zichen's figure flickered and disappeared. Luo San's expression changed greatly. The other party had disappeared from his perception. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Luo San. Zichen pressed his palm on Luo San's face and exerted force. Boom! Luo San fell backwards. The earth trembled as a shockwave spread out in all directions. The entire street began to shake, and the nearby buildings also began to shake. The back of Luo San's head hit the ground first, creating a deep hole in the ground. Luo San laid in the deep hole, his body twitching non-stop. Zichen stood up and turned to look at the inn. Is this your choice? The inn's manager paled. Clearly, he had encountered a tough opponent this time. Misunderstanding. There was fear in the shopkeeper's voice. The other people at the door were also shocked. In just one move, Luo San had been defeated. Zichen turned and entered the inn. The night had just begun. He looked at the shopkeeper in front of him. You wanted to steal my things, and now you found someone to kill me. How do you want to settle this? Sir, this is a misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding. The shopkeeper's voice trembled, but he was cursing in his heart. Wasn't this pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? You are a great expert. Why didn't you go to other inns? Why did you come to my inn? Great, this led to a mistake in judgment. Sir, take this as an apology. I hope you will accept it. The shopkeeper took out a cloth bag and placed it in front of him. Zichen only glanced at it. There were 10 rays of light inside. To invite Luo San here, it would take more than 10 rays of light. This shopkeeper was a little insulting. Zichen glanced at the shopkeeper. He did not take the energy and turned to leave. The shopkeeper did not dare to look at Zichen. He seemed to be very afraid. When Zichen came in, the others were all hiding in the corner. Each of them had a look of fear on their faces. Shopkeeper, what do we do now? The person who was sent flying looked at the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper said with a gloomy face, Get Luo San in first and see if he is dead. How dare he come to my inn and pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger? I want to see how capable he is. That person hesitated. Shopkeeper, Luo San was defeated in one move. I think that person is definitely not ordinary. Why don't we lower our heads and give him some compensation? Compensation? A cold light flashed in the shopkeeper's eyes. Isn't it better to use these rays of light to maintain a relationship? I would rather spend 500 rays of light to settle this matter than compensate him with 100. Luo San was carried in. His injuries were not light, but he was not dead. Sir, we are also very helpless. This time, our inn is willing to take out 500 rays of light. We hope that you can help us solve this matter. That person said. I will definitely avenge this. A cold killing intent flashed in Luo San's eyes. That night, Luo San left in a swaying manner. The night was silent. The next day, the sky was bright. Zichen walked out of the room. At the same time, Xiaozhu also walked out. How is it? Zichen looked at Xiaozhu. Xiaozhu was silent for a moment, then said, I am willing to stay. Zichen smiled and said, You are willing. The problem is that they are not. Zichen took out the cloth bag and returned it to Xiaozhu. At the same time, he walked out. Follow me. Xiaozhu followed. During this time, she noticed the shopkeeper's cold gaze at the door. When she went out, she saw 2 people standing in front of her. One was Luo San, who was beaten up last night. The other was someone she had never seen before. Their gazes were fierce. She was slightly worried about Zichen. At the same time, she regretted her rashness. Instead of staying in the inn, she came here to suffer. This place was cheap, but there was not even water to drink, let alone bathe. Zichen looked at the 2 people in front of him and said, One night has passed. This is your last chance. That person glanced at Luo San and smiled faintly. San, it is as you said. This person is indeed arrogant. Luo San shouted at Zichen, Are you blind? Can't you see that Lord Saijie is here? Zichen looked at him. What do you want? Saijie said, It's simple. You beat someone up. Obviously, It is impossible for you to leave just like that. Take out 500 light of Tao and this matter will be settled. At this moment, the shopkeeper at the door said, Lord, the two of them are together. The shopkeeper pointed at Xiao Zhu. Sai Jie glanced at Xiao Zhu and then sized her up. He said, although she is a little young, it is still rare to see her. Her eyes are so clear and pure. She must be a virgin. How about this? Let her accompany me for a few more days and this matter will be settled. Zichen frowned. He did not expect the shopkeeper to be so insatiable. Luo San shouted, what are you waiting for? Lord is giving you face, so you should take it. That bitch, why aren't you coming over? Xiao Zhu walked forward, I am willing to accompany you for a few days. Can you let him go? Take out 500 light of Tao and this matter can be discussed. Sai Jie laughed, otherwise, even if I play with you until you are broken, there is no discussion. Stand there and don't move. Zichen suddenly said. Xiao Zhu stopped and turned to look at Zichen. Zichen said, actually, if you want to survive, there are many ways. The way you chose is the worst. What way is there? Xiao Zhu's expression was bitter, everyone is like this. Now, I will show you. With that, Zichen disappeared again. When he reappeared, he was in front of Sai Jie. Such speed. Sai Jie's expression changed and he took a step back. Boom. Chapter 5209. Sai Jie, 5th level spirit technique. In the Pure Land, he was definitely a tyrant. The reason why the other party could come this time was because the shopkeeper took out 500 Tao law light to settle this matter. Otherwise, why would he, with such a noble status, come to this kind of place? But he never thought that such a powerhouse would actually be defeated in one move. The same outcome as Luo San. Even worse, he fainted instantly. Beside him, Luo San was almost scared silly. He thought that Lord Sai Jie was enough to deal with him, but he did not expect, when did such a powerhouse come to this Pure Land? Exclamations came from all around, everyone was shocked. The shopkeeper was almost paralyzed with fear. Even the famous Sai Jie was defeated in one move. Obviously, he kicked an iron plate this time. Zichen walked forward and searched Sai Jie's body, then found a cloth bag. After opening it, he saw 500 Tao law light. He turned his head to look at Luo San beside him. Where did these come from? Luo San pointed at the shopkeeper. He gave it to us, saying to let us deal with Lord. Zichen turned back and looked at the pale-faced shopkeeper. For just a few dozen Tao law light, is it worth it? Lord, this is a misunderstanding. The shopkeeper was scared silly and directly knelt on the ground. Not to mention whether he could find a stronger powerhouse, just the cost was too great. 500 Tao law light was the limit of power he could mobilize. This was still under the situation where he had a special relationship with the boss. Zichen put away these Tao law light, then looked at Luo San beside him. How much is his life worth? Luo San was stunned, not knowing and not daring to answer this question. When you think about it, come find me. Zichen grabbed Sai Jie's foot and walked into the distance. After walking a few steps, he turned back to look at the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper had already completely collapsed on the ground. Zichen smiled faintly, since you have rules to follow, then use your rules. As his voice fell, Zichen stomped his feet. Boom. A shockwave landed on the inn in front of them. This inn that was opened in a narrow alley collapsed with a bang. Immediately, there were screams. The surrounding smoke began to surge violently. Luo San was completely scared out of his wits. Collapsing an inn with a single step, what kind of power did this require? One had to know that the inn wasn't actually that big of a deal. The only thing that could stabilize everything was the array within the inn. It was also the most expensive item. Zichen, who was preparing to leave, suddenly turned his head to look at the inn. Light flickered in the collapsed area, forming a strange formation. It really is a spirit-gathering array. Zichen immediately saw through it. However, it was different from the spirit-gathering formation he had encountered in the Martial Heaven continent. To be more precise, this was not called a spirit-gathering array, but a minor gathering array. It was just that the technique was too crude. Chen had obtained the inheritance of the Tao of divine runes from the immortal spell world. It was more or less the same as the formation here. It was clear at a glance. Chen dragged Jie away. Lil Bamboo immediately followed behind him. At that moment, she was extremely shocked. She was increasingly convinced that Chen came from the upper realm. It's over, it's all over now. The innkeeper wished he could slap his own mouths. For a few dozen Tao of light, they had fallen to such a state. This was what it meant to lose big for small gains. Now, not only did they lose 500 Tao of light, even the inn had collapsed. Moreover, this matter was clearly not over yet. After Chen left, Luo-san looked at the innkeeper. It's all your fault. Chen dragged the unconscious Jie and walked in this filthy place. Everywhere he passed, he attracted many sidelong glances. When someone recognized Jie, they were even more shocked. They knew that something big was about to happen. Chen dragged Jie back to the inn. At the entrance, he casually threw Jie aside as if he was throwing trash. Jie's body was emitting a foul stench. It was obvious that he could not bring him into the inn. Many people had already gathered around. The people here were more knowledgeable and immediately recognized Jie. "Sir." The waiter heard the commotion and walked out. When he saw this scene, his expression changed and he immediately said, "Sir, what are you?" He immediately changed his words. "Dealing with some matters. Help me get a glass of water." Chen walked into the inn and sat down on the first floor. Xiaozhu came to Chen's side and also sat down. She lowered her head and did not say a word. Chen glanced at her and said, "Tell me how you really feel." Xiaozhu did not open her mouth. Tears flowed down directly. Last night, when she just entered the inn, her clothes were stripped by those women. If not for Chen establishing his power at the end, her ending would probably be even worse. She had clearly overestimated herself. If she left Chen, she might not even survive a day. The reason why Chen attracted this trouble was because of that small bag of Tao of light. Chen said, "Actually, you can be like me and use your fists to live. It's better than using your body, right?" Xiaozhu said, "Let's not talk about whether I have the talent or not. Right now, I can't even do the basic survival. How can I use my fists?" Chen smiled and said, "I can lend it to you." Xiaozhu looked at Chen. Chen continued, "But there's one point that I have to make clear. You have to write an IOU. How much of my Tao of light you used, you have to return it to me in the future. Furthermore, it has to be with interest." Xiao stood not far away the whole time. He was very nervous in his heart. That person was Jie, a 5th-level spirit technique, an absolute big shot. But today, he was dragged back like a dead dog. He heard the two people's conversation. Then, he looked at that girl, his eyes filled with envy. Such a good thing could not be found even if one held a lantern. Wasn't this generous lord a little too nice? He originally thought that there was something between the two, or that the lord had some special fetish. Now, it seemed that he was thinking too much. This lord was purely kind-hearted. This kind of person was practically extinct in this pure land. Asterisk 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 asterisk. The news of Jie being beaten spread very quickly. Hence, the upper echelons of the Pure Land gathered together to discuss this matter. "Preposterous, simply preposterous," a thin man said angrily. "How can we let an outsider bully us? This matter, regardless of whether you can swallow it or not, Jiolei, can't swallow it." Beside him, a person said indifferently, "Of course you can't swallow it. He smashed your inn, not someone else's. Besides, you didn't control your subordinates and provoked an existence that you shouldn't have provoked." What do you mean?" Jiolei stared coldly at the person who spoke. "Nothing. I just feel that you should go and apologize to him. After all, from the news I heard, he tolerated everything. It was your people who were aggressive." Kaya said, "So, you were wrong. Isn't it good to go and apologize to him? Your mother's fart. Don't think that you can do whatever you want with Lord Bo Luo protecting you. What qualifications does an outsider have to make me apologize?" Jiolei was furious. Kaya said, "Is that so? Then go and get back at him. He's staying at Hayden's Inn. By the way, I advise you to hurry up. If you're late, Saije's head will be chopped off." Jiolei snorted coldly and then looked at the silent man next to him. "Hayden, what do you think? He's staying at my inn and hasn't destroyed anything. I can't drive him away." Hayden looked at Caleb and said, "I think that you are indeed unreasonable in this matter. Go and apologize." "You want me to apologize to an outsider? Good, very good. It seems that you want to make me unable to raise my head in the Okon Pure Land." Jiolei said coldly, "Isn't he just an outsider? See how I deal with him." Chapter 52:10. Saije was still lying on the ground, still unconscious. In fact, he woke up once in the middle, but after looking at the situation, he felt that it was safer to faint. Caleb came. He brought a group of people and surrounded the place. The others scattered far away, watching from afar. In the Okon Pure Land, such a thing had not happened for a long time. Zichen stopped talking with Xiao Zhu and looked at Caleb, who came in. Caleb said, "How should I address you?" "Zichen." Caleb pointed behind him, "I've brought him here." The shopkeeper came to the door and knelt on the ground. "Sir, please spare my life. I was wrong, I was really wrong." The shopkeeper knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. If he knew last night that the matter would be so serious, he would not dare to act recklessly. Now, he did not even have the chance to make up for it. Caleb waved his hand with a cold expression. Puff. A person next to him stepped forward and slashed the shopkeeper's neck with one hand. With a flash of light, the shopkeeper's head was separated from his body. Immediately, screams came from the surroundings. Zichen glanced at the corpse and his eyes flashed with surprise. It did not disappear. It seemed that the rules of the wasteland were useless here. Was Caleb apologizing? In the crowd, some people's faces changed. The always proud Caleb was willing to apologize, which was rare. Caleb said coldly, he was wrong, he had to admit it, so he died. Zichen's expression was calm as he pointed at the unconscious Saijie. "What about him? How much is his life worth?" In Zichen's eyes, this matter was obviously not over. Caleb's eyes flashed with anger. "I haven't finished speaking." Zichen looked at Caleb and motioned him to speak first. "He was wrong, he's dead, and the matter is over. Now, it's time to talk about my inn. You destroyed it, what do you want to say?" Caleb's eyes flashed with coldness. "If you don't give me an explanation today, don't even think about taking a step out of the Okon Pure Land." Zichen looked at him. "Are you done?" "Yes." Zichen asked, "What about his life?" Zichen was still pointing at Saijie. Garrett said angrily, "I'm talking to you about an inn." "What are you talking about?" Zichen said faintly, "I'm talking to you about a being at the 5th level of the spirit spell realm." "You want to die?" Gale's eyes were filled with killing intent. Zichen could only look at Saijie. "You're just pretending to be dead. He doesn't care about your life or death. You tell him yourself. Otherwise, I'll really be dead." Saijie, who was lying on the ground, immediately got up and said, "I'll give you 1,000 light of the Tao." Zichen looked at Saijie calmly. "Is this your fate?" Saijie's face changed. He gritted his teeth and said, 2,000. This number caused the surrounding people to be incomparably shocked, because it was too great. Zichen extended his hand, which made Saijie even more embarrassed. Because he didn't. He quickly turned his head and looked at the crowd. The crowd immediately retreated. Damn it. Saijie's face was filled with anger. Were these people worried that he couldn't afford it? "Why don't we let him go back and get it? If he doesn't come, I'll pay for him." A voice rang out as another person walked over. When the waiter saw this, he immediately called out to the boss. Obviously, it was the owner of this inn, Hayden, who was also in the 5th degree realm. Zichen waved his hand at Saijie. Saijie cupped his fists towards Hayden gratefully and then hurriedly left. When he left, he stared fiercely at the surrounding crowd. Gale looked coldly at Zichen and said, "Now, it's time to talk about the matter between us. I need an explanation for this matter." Zichen glanced at Gale. "What do I have to say to you? He originally deserved to die. I didn't want to make a move because I didn't want to dirty my hands. Zi-Chen's gaze swept across the people Gale had brought. How would they dare to look at Zi-Chen? They hurriedly avoided him. That inn of yours has been open for so many years and I don't know how many people it has harmed. Speaking of this, I only regret that I came too late. If I had come earlier and demolished the inn, there would probably be many people who would benefit from it. Zi-Chen pointed at those people outside. Actually, I don't feel that their responsibility is the greatest. If it wasn't for your protection, I reckon that they wouldn't have done such a thing. So, the one who deserves to die the most is actually you. You'd better not give me a second chance because what I want to do the most now is to get rid of you. Presumptuous. Gale flew into a rage. Who do you think you are? You dare to kill me? Zi-Chen ignored Gale's howl. The current him had no reason to kill anyone. Hayden took a look at Gale and said, Gale, let's just forget about this matter. Forget about it. On what basis? Garrett roared angrily, he forced my men to their deaths and destroyed my inn. How can I let this matter rest? If I forget about it, where should I put my face? Don't forget, this is Ocon's pure land. Lord Ocon has helped me before. Zi-Chen ignored Gale's howl. He sat down and poured himself a cup of tea. He also poured a cup for Xiao Zhu who was sitting opposite him. As for Gale's act of taking advantage of the situation, he pretended not to hear it. He looked at Xiao Zhu. Have you thought about it? Xiao Zhu nodded. Yes, I have. I will follow you and owe you a debt first. Zi-Chen smiled when he heard this. This was obviously the right choice. I am talking to you. Did you hear me? Being ignored by Zi-Chen made Gale furious. You said that my inn should have disappeared, right? Haha, then let me tell you. All the inns on the surrounding street are mine. That's right, the shopkeeper was ordered by me. Because that is my territory, all the rules are set by me. Then he pointed at Xiao Zhu. You went there because of this bitch, right? I, Gale, will announce that if this bitch dares to come to my inn again, not only will my men take away all her light of law, they will also rape her before killing her. Zi-Chen furrowed his brows as a cold look appeared on his face. What, you don't believe me? Let me tell you. All these years, we have done many such things. What is a death here? Gale's expression was disdainful. Zi-Chen said, Indeed, it's not a big deal if someone dies here. Haha, you can see it too? Since I have the strength, I naturally have something to rely on. Gale pointed at his crotch. Get over here and crawl through. Then this matter will be over. Otherwise, you know the consequences. But sometimes, the death of a person is extremely significant. Zi-Chen stood up. In the next moment, there was a breeze. When the breeze dissipated, Zi-Chen had already disappeared from his original spot. Another roar suddenly sounded from outside the inn. On the ground, there was a deep pit. Gale fell to the ground in the pit. He stared at Zi-Chen. Kid, if you have the ability, then kill me. Do you dare? Come on. All right. Zi-Chen nodded. Then he lifted his foot and stomped down. The madness in Gale's eyes turned into fear when Zi-Chen's foot landed. Infinite fear. He did not expect that this hothead would actually dare to make a move. Can't you tell that I am just bluffing you? I have a powerful force behind me. When the foot landed, a powerful energy shock wave instantly extinguished Gale's life. He asked to kill. Zi-Chen fulfilled his wish. Chapter 52:11. Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect Zi-Chen to kill someone just like that. A 5th-level spirit spell was trampled to death just like that. In this pure land, Caleb had a great reputation and great influence. Just as he said, all the inns in the outer area belonged to him. Different from Hayden's place, his inn's environment wasn't good and the prices were very cheap. Other than normal operations, he would often get some side income. If there was a suitable opportunity, he would also force women into prostitution. This could also explain why the shopkeeper was so bold. After a 3rd-level spirit spell was defeated in one move, he still dared to not apologize and even dared to mobilize resources to fight to the death with Zi-Chen. Now, they were all dead. The others around didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Hayden was even more shocked. He didn't react at all before, or else he would have stopped them. Sai Jie came back with the resources, he didn't dare not to come back. He just happened to see the arrogant Gale turn into a corpse. His heart twitched fiercely as he hurriedly went forward and said, "Sir, the light of law is here." Sai Jie held a large cloth bag. After Zi Chen opened it, a dazzling light appeared in his vision. He didn't count them one by one, but the number shouldn't be bad. "Thanks." Zi Chen smiled faintly. "Next time there's such a good thing, remember to find me. If you have friends, you can introduce them to me. Don't look for others. It's cheap here." I won't. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I definitely won't do it next time." Sai Jie waved his hand. Then, he said, "Sir, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first." Zi Chen waved his hand. Sai Jie felt as if he was pardoned and turned to leave. As for the dead Gale, he didn't look at him again. A dead person wasn't worth paying attention to. Moreover, Sai Jie didn't care about his life or death. The others also dispersed. The excitement was over, but the shock in everyone's heart didn't dissipate for a long time. Hayden walked over with a pot of wine and 3 cups in his left hand. After sitting down, he poured 3 cups of wine. Zi Chen's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't expect there to be such things in the Pure Land. He picked up the wine cup and drank a cup. Then, he smacked his lips. To be honest, the taste was really not that good. After all, Zi Chen had brewed wine before, so he had the skills to do so. An idea suddenly popped up in his mind. Why don't I make wine here to survive? He wondered what the others would think when the news spread. He was the strongest person in the Myriad Spirit Realm, but after arriving in the Immortal Spell World, he changed his career path to brewing wine. "My name is Hayden. You were too impulsive when you killed Gal." Hayden raised his glass and said, "He has some connections here." Zi Chen smiled and said, "You're so lawless. You must have more than just some connections, right?" Looking at Zi Chen talking cheerfully and wittily, Hayden's heart skipped a beat. To be able to say such words, it was clear that he had expected this. Just how confident was he? At that moment, Lil Bamboo was looking at the cup of wine curiously. She wanted to drink it but did not dare to. Seeing this, Zi Chen said, "Try it." Xiaozhu nodded, picked up the cup, and drank it in one gulp. He immediately stuck out his long tongue, as if he was not used to it. Zi Chen smiled. "How does it taste?" Xiaozhu retracted her tongue and said, "It's very sweet." Zi Chen was speechless. How could this be called very sweet? "I don't think you're from the Okon Pure Land. Where are you from?" Hayden looked at Zi Chen. "Very far away." Zi Chen poured himself a cup of wine and drank it in one gulp. It was still tasteless. It had nothing to do with sweetness. So, he took out a pot of wine from his spirit ring and poured himself a cup. "Wow, it smells so good," Xiaozhu exclaimed. The fragrance of the wine spread, and some people in the distance looked over. Hayden's eyes flashed. This kind of magic trick was very impressive in this place. "Try this." Zi Chen poured a cup for Hayden. After drinking it, Hayden smiled and said, "Good wine. Just this mouthful is worth a few bottles of mine." Zi Chen said, "I don't have much, so I can't give it to you." This was just a polite sentence. In fact, Zi Chen had a lot of wine, but the two were not familiar with each other. "It's good. Just try it." Hayden did not force him. After that, the two of them casually chatted about some things. Hayden intended to investigate Zi Chen's background. However, after Zi Chen understood what kind of world this was, he spoke with reservations. After drinking Zi Chen's pot of wine, Hayden stood up. "This matter will definitely alarm others. From the looks of it, it's not over yet." Zi Chen nodded, indicating that he understood. After Hayden left, Zi Chen brought Xiaozhu upstairs. Looking at this place again, Xiaozhu felt very familiar. Even looking at the ground made her feel very comfortable. Zi Chen said, "Next, you should work hard to cultivate." "How do I cultivate?" Xiaozhu tilted her head and looked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen said, "Use it to cultivate." Zi Chen handed the bag of light of law to Xiaozhu. "Remember, there are 2,000 strands. How do I cultivate? Xiaozhu took the heavy bag of light of law and asked again. Zichen said, next, you'll refine it as usual until your body can't finish refining it. That's it. Xiaozhu was stunned. This is cultivation. Cultivation has always been this simple. Zichen had specifically asked about this when he was chatting with Haydn earlier. It seemed no different from the 10,000 spirit realm. Xiaozhu was a little skeptical, but she still decided to try Zichen's method. To her, light of law was never a cultivation energy. It was her life. However, there were 2,000 strands of energy now, so Xiaozhu began to refine them. The waiter knocked on the door and served a pot of tea. Next, Zichen drank the tea while watching Xiaozhu refine the light of law. Actually, he also wanted to know how many strands of light of law Xiaozhu had to refine to fill her body. And to break through, what kind of realm did she need? One strand after another. Xiaozhu absorbed the energy here just like how she usually absorbed the light of law. After refining 30 strands of energy, there were some energy fluctuations around Xiaozhu's body, but it was extremely weak. After 50 strands, the aura fluctuation was slightly stronger. After 100 strands, there were finally some changes. But through Zichen's perception, it wasn't even at the first level of spirit cultivation. Xiaozhu continued to refine and 200 strands of energy disappeared. Xiaozhu's aura was close to the first level of spirit cultivation. After refining another 100 strands of energy, Xiaozhu's body emitted a heavy aura. Xiaozhu took out another strand of energy and continued to refine. Suddenly, she stopped and looked at Zichen. I'm already full. I can't eat anymore. Zichen nodded as a trace of shock flashed across his eyes. Just 300 strands of light of law and Xiaozhu had reached the first level of spirit cultivation. In the 10,000 spirit realm, it would take countless years to reach this level. It seemed that this place was indeed blessed by the heavens. Chapter 52:13. Just 300 law lights were enough to nurture a first-level spirit spell cultivator. This was too worth it for Zichen. Zichen wasn't sure if everyone here was like that. Xiaozhu looked at her hands and the light flowing between her palms. She couldn't believe her eyes. This is power. I have power too. She was excited and in disbelief. I can kill the ancestor beast too? Zichen thought about it and said, it's true that you have power, but it's not realistic to kill the ancestor beast. According to the estimation of the ancestor beast he killed last time, it was around the 3rd or 4th level of spirit spell. Xiaozhu was startled. When can I kill the ancestor beast? Zichen said, that depends on how much you've improved. You are only at the 1st level of spirit spell, at least the 4th level. Xiaozhu looked at the remaining law lights. After following Zichen for a few days, it was the largest amount of law lights she had seen in her life. She never thought that one day, she would be able to eat law lights until she was full. She also didn't know that one would have power when one was full. Zichen looked out of the window. After coming here for a few days, he didn't use up much of his power. However, it wasn't easy to replenish it. In these few days, Xiaozhu refined 300 rays of power. But in order to recover, Zichen had refined more than 3,000 rays of power. Although he still had a lot of black stones on him, he couldn't handle such consumption. One must know that he only fought a few times last time. He hadn't experienced a real battle yet. So now, Zichen needed to obtain some law lights to prepare for emergencies. Moreover, he was certain that there were higher grades of light of law out there. For example, the one he got from killing the ancestor beast. Or else, with his realm, it would take a long time just to rely on these law lights for a big battle. Let's go out for a walk. Zichen went downstairs. Xiaozhu followed behind. When the waiter saw the two of them, he immediately came up to them. Now, almost everyone in Okang's Pure Land knew that there was a tyrannical existence living in this inn. Zichen nodded at the waiter and brought Xiaozhu out of the inn. When the waiter saw Xiaozhu, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Xiaozhu had just obtained energy and was still unable to control it. Hence, her aura was still in an external state. This aura made Little Fool clearly feel danger. In just a few short days, he had actually grown to such a level. While the waiter was shocked, He was also incomparably envious. It was clear that this lord had been constantly providing the light of law. Otherwise, how could there be such great progress? Zichen walked on the street. It was very lively here. Most of the people he saw were ordinary people without any power around them. Thus, Lil Bamboo's appearance immediately caused a commotion. Many people were looking at her in fear. In the eyes of these ordinary people, the first level of spirit cultivation was already an amazing existence. Back then, Luo-san was only at the third level of spirit cultivation and dared to show off. Xiaozhu saw respect in these people's eyes. Can I survive? Xiaozhu tilted her head and looked at Zichen. It's hard to say. Zichen said, if you want to live an ordinary life, there should be no problem. But if you want to be extraordinary, I'm afraid it's not possible. Xiaozhu said, I want to live an ordinary life. Zichen said again, if you live an ordinary life, you will never be able to repay the light of law you owe me. Xiaozhu pursed her lips, then I will continue to cultivate. But maybe, Zichen interrupted Xiaozhu's words, there's no possibility. I'm not afraid of you owing me. The higher your realm, the faster you will be able to earn light of law in the future. Just like me, in less than a day, I obtained more than 2,000 light of law. Xiaozhu nodded, and her confidence reappeared in her heart. In fact, Zichen's words were very misleading. But the current Xiaozhu obviously couldn't tell. Galei's death caused quite a commotion in the Pure Land. His properties had all become ownerless, causing many people to be envious of him. When Wei Luo returned and heard the news, he immediately called all the influential people in the area over. Tell me about that person's background. He actually caused such a big commotion. Wei Luo looked at everyone present. Everyone was silent. Wei Luo said, Ka, tell us. Ka scratched his head and said, Sir, this matter really has nothing to do with me. Back then, I suggested Galei to apologize to Zichen, but he didn't listen. Everyone can testify for me. Wei Luo said, Galei's death has nothing to do with you. Today, I called you here to talk about that Zichen. Sir, I'm not familiar with that Zichen. I didn't even say a word to him. Haydn, on the other hand, drank with him. Maybe he knows something. Everyone looked at Haydn. Haydn said, I asked him back then, but he didn't say much. I suspect that he's from the upper realm. Upper realm? Wei Luo's expression changed. That's just my guess. I don't know what the truth is. As for the basis, I drank the wine he brought. The taste is many times better than the good wine in my shop. Haydn thought for a moment and said, moreover, he's not familiar with the Pure Land. Just by hearing what Haydn said, the others guessed that the other party might be from the upper realm. He was so powerful, unfamiliar with the Pure Land, and had good wine. If he didn't come from the upper realm, where else could he come from? But why would someone from the upper realm come down? And come to their place? Wei Luo asked again, what do you think of his strength? Haydn shook his head and said, I don't know. Anyway, I can't beat him. Nonsense. If you can beat him, you won't be standing here. Next to him, someone mocked. Then, do you think he's here for a walk or is he planning to stay here for a long time? Or does he have other purposes? I'm not sure about that. Find a chance to sound him out. Also, Sir isn't here recently. Don't trouble that person again. Everything will wait for Sir to come back. Everyone nodded and then left. Haydn went to the inn again and coincidentally met Zichen and Xiaozhu who were returning. Haydn smiled and said, Drink? Zichen nodded and sat down. He took the initiative to take out a pot of wine. I have something to ask. Haydn's eyes lit up. With wine, everything can be discussed. He took the initiative to take the wine pot and poured 3 cups. Xiaozhu sat at the side. Haydn glanced at Xiaozhu, but with just a glance, his expression changed. First level of spirit technique. Isn't this too fast? At this moment, Zichen asked, Here, how can I earn the light of law? Haydn was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Zichen to ask this question. You plan to stay here for a long time? Haydn asked. If there's a way to earn the light of law, I might stay here for a long time. Zichen didn't hide it. At the very least, He didn't have any other clear places. Haydn said, "There are many ways to earn the light of law. At the very least, you can form an adventure team to hunt ancestral beasts outside the Pure Land. Then, Haydn pointed at his feet, for example, you can open an inn or do some business in the Pure Land." Haydn smiled in the end. "Of course, these are all a bit slow. There's one last way, which is the fastest. Once you succeed, you don't have to worry about not having enough light of law."
Oh.
Zichen looked at Haydn. Chapter 52:14. Open up a pure land. Haydn's words made Zichen stunned. He was a little puzzled. Haydn said, "Legend has it that the Pure Land is the product of the immortal's death in battle. There are many resources in it. The first person to discover the Pure Land will receive the immortal's gift and become the master of the Pure Land. This method was undoubtedly the fastest way to gain contribution points." Zichen said again, "Last time, I killed the ancestor beast and got a light of law. Its grade is a little higher than the ordinary ones." Haydn said, "That's a law spirit. One is equivalent to 100 light of law." Then Zichen asked a few more questions. Haydn answered almost everything he knew until the three of them finished a pot of wine. Zichen and Haydn drank mainly. Xiaozhu only drank 2 cups. During this time, the waiter served a pot of tea and Xiaozhu drank it. Haydn suddenly remembered something and said, "Lord Wei Luo is back. I'll ask him if there's any business suitable for you in the Pure Land." Zichen nodded and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you." After drinking the pot of wine, Haydn left and went to find Wei Luo. Before he came, he was still in a dilemma about how to talk to Zichen. He didn't expect Zichen to take the initiative to mention it. He went straight to Wei Luo and told her what Zichen had asked him. Wei Luo said, "So, he's planning to stay here for a long time?" Haydn said, "He said that if there's a suitable way, he can stay here for a long time." Wei Luo snorted, "He's got guts. He killed people here and now he dares to stay here for a long time. I don't know if he's confident or conceited." "Lord, about Zichen," Haydn looked at Wei Luo. Wei Luo thought for a moment and said, "Since that's the case, let's try first and see if he has the ability. How about this, you tell him that Caleb is dead. All his inns are empty and ownerless. If he's willing to take over, all the inns will belong to him." Wei Luo's face changed when he heard this. "Lord, I'm afraid that's not appropriate. Many people are eyeing those inns in Gal. That's a real piece of fat meat. Fat meat is indeed delicious, but you need to have an appetite, right?" Wei Luo said, "Didn't he want to stay for a long time? Naturally, he has to show the corresponding strength. If he's not capable, then he deserves to die." Haydn nodded, indicating that he understood. "You will be in charge of this matter. You must tell him all the properties. How much he can get back will depend on his ability." "Yes." In the evening, Haydn returned to the inn and asked the waiter to find Zichen. Haydn held 2 pots of wine. "This time, I'll treat you. At the same time, I'll tell you a piece of good news."
Oh.
Zichen sat down. Little Bamboo was still cultivating in the room. Haydn said, "I met with His Excellency before. When he heard about you, he was a little surprised because he thought that you might leave soon. However, my lord said that it's better if you don't leave. That way, the dead Gale can hand over the inns under his control to you." "Hand them over to me." Zichen was stunned. He didn't dare to believe it. "Yes. This is what His Excellency said. If you have the ability, you can run those inns better." Zichen looked at Haydn. "Running an inn requires ability?" To be honest, when Gale obtained that large piece of land and used it to build inns, the use of connections far surpassed ability. Now that he's dead, those places have become ownerless. Everyone wants them. During this period of time, others have been secretly competing with each other, intending to divide them up. Haydn looked at Zichen. "Therefore, His Excellency gave them to you. Naturally, you need ability to take them over." Zichen nodded. He understood. "I'll take you to see them. After that, 50% of the inn's profits will be handed over to His Excellency Wei Luo." Haydn said, "In the past, it was 30%. That was because everything here was built by Gale. Now that you're taking over the ready-made ones, the profits will be higher. Oh right, His Excellency also said that if you want to rebuild that collapsed place, you'll only get 10% of the profits. Zichen asked, only the profits from running the inn? Haydn naturally understood Zichen's meaning. He nodded. Of course, only the inn. Before you came, Gale's Inn had no problems running, and there were no other unexpected situations. Zichen believed that all the unexpected people should have been dealt with. Okay, take me to see it tomorrow. Zichen agreed. In fact, he didn't care much about the inn's profits. He still chose to agree because if he left one day, Xiaozhu would be able to survive. What he was really interested in was the adventurers who didn't earn the light of law the most, or looking for a pure land. Because in addition to being the master of a pure land, one could also sell a pure land, provided that the buyer could pay a sufficient price. Haydn didn't say anything, but Zichen could guess what he was going to do, and that was to plunder a pure land. Early in the morning the next day, Haydn brought Zichen to that street. Haydn stood at the entrance of the street and pointed ahead. From here, all the inns you see used to be Gale's territory, but now they are yours. The entire street was filled with them. Zichen looked at Haydn. Help me inform the managers of the inns and tell them to come here with the account books. Haydn was stunned. Zichen was treating him as a subordinate. Zichen saw Haydn's strange expression and said, if you don't have time, give me that waiter of yours. I think he's quite clever. Fine, you're not familiar with this place at first. I'll take you to familiarize yourself with it. Haydn walked forward. He had never been to such a dirty and messy place. Even if he was mentally prepared, he still frowned. Zichen stood at the entrance of the street. Perhaps he disliked the environment, but he didn't enter. After a while, 13 people came over. They were all holding account books in their hands. Their eyes were a little nervous as they followed behind Haydn. 13 inns. Including the original open space, there are 14 in total. Haydn walked over and said. Zichen nodded and then threw a pot of wine to Haydn. Thanks. Haydn smiled. He got a pot of good wine just by walking around. He was in a good mood and couldn't wait to run a few more errands. Zichen looked at the managers and smiled. Hello, everyone. I'm Zichen. I was the one who killed that Gale. Now that he's dead, the territory is mine. Now you're under my control. He pointed to the account books in their hands and said, before looking at the things in your hands, I'll tell you my rules. If you make false accounts, I won't expel you, because I'll kill you directly. If you have family members, I'll kill all the men and keep the women. The 13 managers' faces all changed. They didn't expect that the new master's opening statement was to kill. Such a straightforward and powerful warning. I don't care if you've communicated with other people, because there's no need. I'll take care of this place. If they dare to cause trouble, I'll kill them all. Zichen said, people who can take a fancy to Gale's property are destined to not have much ability. Well, take your account books back. Tomorrow, go to his inn and find me. Then you'll report to me. Zichen waved his hand and then turned to leave. The 13 shopkeepers felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. Chapter 52:15. Haydn followed Zichen back. At this moment, he was full of admiration for Zichen. 13 inns. 13 shopkeepers. Zichen didn't look at the account book. He only said a few words and let them go back. He believed that when they came back tomorrow, the account book would be different from today's. Of course, if anyone dared to take the risk and test the weight of Zichen's words, Zichen would definitely take the opportunity to make an example out of them. Haydn followed Zichen and couldn't help but ask curiously, how do you plan to manage those inns next? Zichen glanced at Haydn. You want to know? Haydn nodded. As a businessman, he naturally wanted to see. Not to mention others, just those 13 inns would make a lot of money every year. They didn't need to be handed over to others. Although that street was dirty and messy, the ability to earn light of law wasn't weak at all. Because there were too many people who didn't have a tomorrow. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people envious. Let's see tomorrow. Back at the inn, Xiaozhu was still refining the light of law. Actually, Under normal circumstances, Zi Chen should find a place for her to consume her energy and then refine it. But there wasn't time for that yet. The next day, the 13 shopkeepers came and waited outside the inn early in the morning. When the waiter saw these people, he was obviously shocked. In his eyes, these were all big shot. Zi Chen walked down from upstairs. He glanced at the 13 people and said, "I thought you would come one by one." The 13 shopkeepers immediately bowed. They still had to show the necessary respect for this big shot. Zi Chen glanced at the 13 people and said, "You are people from Galay. In fact, I don't want to use you from the bottom of my heart." Haydn also came when Zi Chen said this. He stood in the distance and didn't come to disturb. The 13 people's expressions changed slightly. Zi Chen continued, "Because my business philosophy will be completely different from what you've done in the past. But if I just fire the 13 of you, you will definitely cause some trouble. As for me, I can also use these things to kill you." The 13 people's faces immediately turned pale. They could tell that this was not a warning, but a very casual mention of this matter. This meant that this was very likely to happen. But if that's the case, I still have to find a few more shopkeepers and check their character. It's really too troublesome, so I might as well use you guys first. Who knows, maybe you guys will be very obedient. Zi Chen glanced at them and said, "But even though I'm using you, I still hope that 2 or 3 of you can cause some trouble for me so that I can kill you. At the same time, you can also warn the others. This will make it easier for me to manage them. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey." He said it so straightforwardly. The 13 people's hearts skipped a beat. They couldn't see through this lord anymore. Xiaoer stood to the side. After hearing these words, his face was filled with admiration. As expected of a big shot, his words were so direct. Zi Chen continued, "While I'm looking at the account book, you can give your own opinions at any time. For example, if you feel that the number on the book is too small, you can add another number. Before that, I won't pursue the matter. But if I find out about it later, I'm sorry, but you have to die. You have to die, and so do your families. Believe me, I killed Gale without batting an eye. It's the same for you guys." Zi Chen smiled. "Most importantly, I won't get any other benefits from killing Gale. But it's different if I kill you. I'll search your residence and take all your wealth." This was a threat, but it was also a fact. The 13 people's faces changed again. 2 of them even had a look of horror on their faces. Zi Chen looked at one of them and said, "Give me the account book. I'll start with you. The rest of you can continue to consider." The shopkeeper directly knelt down and said in horror, "My lord, the number on the book is wrong. You need to add another 4,800 light of law. 4,800 points could be exchanged for 480 light of law." Zi Chen didn't say anything. He opened the account book and started to check it. There were no detailed notes on it, but there were the number and size of the rooms, as well as the charging standards. There were also other staff expenses and various other expenses. With Zi Chen's calculation ability, he could still make a rough calculation. After a rough calculation and adding those numbers, it was more or less enough. Of course, this didn't include the loot from their robbery. Zi Chen turned his head and looked at the waiter, saying, "Come, help me add this number." The waiter quickly trotted over and added some numbers. Then, Zi Chen looked at the person on the far left. "It's your turn." The other party handed over the account book and said, "My lord, I just calculated again. I have to add a little more. 1,353 points." Zi Chen didn't say anything. He first looked at the numbers on the book. After feeling that it wasn't too much of a difference, he let the waiter add it. 13 people, one by one. Zi Chen looked at the account book one by one. The numbers on it were also increasing. The highest number was as high as 6,000 points. The rest were 1 or 2,000 points, equivalent to 1 or 200 light of law. Zi Chen looked at the last person. "It's your turn." That person handed over the account book and didn't say anything after that. Zi Chen looked carefully and found that every expense was recorded in detail. Until the end, he didn't see the other party take the initiative to report. "What's your name?" Zi Chen glanced at him. That person said, "My lord, I'm called Laurent." Chen put down the account book and nodded. After looking through the 13 account books, he found that the number of light of law on them had exceeded 300,000 points, which was 30,000 light of law. Such an amount was still very shocking to him. This didn't include the ones they robbed during the day. Chen said, according to the rules, take 30% of the original amount and turn it over. The 13 people nodded. Hayden frowned slightly, because according to the previous agreement, they had to take out half of it. Chen suddenly looked at the waiter and asked, "What do you think of Rat Road Street?" The waiter was stunned. He clearly didn't expect Chen to ask such a question. Chen smiled, "I'm just saying. Don't be nervous. There are a lot of people there. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the busiest street. It's just that the environment isn't very good." The waiter thought for a while and said. Chen asked, "Then how many light of law do you think it'll take if the road there is repaired?" The waiter said, "Probably 100 or 200. Chen looked at the person called Laurent. "What do you think? If the road is repaired, how many light of law do you think it'll take?" "If it's simple, 100 light of law won't be enough. If it's slightly better, it'll take about 300. If it's like this street, 1,000 won't be enough." This was already a good place. Chen needed 2 light of law to stay here for 1 night. If it was Rat Road Street, he could stay for 20 nights.